Hello everyone, if you're new to my channel, consider liking and subscribing. It will make me feel wonderful if you do that. Thanks. By the way, I also have another Naruto and Luffy fanfiction channel. If you are interested, link is in the description.
Shadows and Serpentes by Alenthedragon. This is a fan fiction about what if Luffy eat a different devil fruit instead of the gum fruit. He will have the dragon fruit, model dragon of darkness and shadows. He is joined by Hancock, who is his age here, and has a different fruit as well. Hope you like it. Adios.
On the ruined dock, Crocodile, Isla, stood with her golden hook raised, sand swirling around her like a cyclone. Her coat billowed behind her as razor-edged grains twisted into drills, walls, and blades. Opposite her, Boa Hancock, eyes fierce, serpentine tail coiled, longbow drawn. The ground cracked beneath her with every step. Then they collided. Hockey against hockey, lightning crackled through the air. Sand shields clashed with venom-laced arrows. Crocodile's blade storm met Hancock's hair of snapping serpents. Every blow left craters. Every dodge carved scars into the ground. "You're strong," Hancock said, circling, eyes locked. "Not bad for someone who hides behind a masked croca." Crocodile snarled, sand drilling into the stone. "Don't call me Croca." Hancock smirked. "What, ashamed of your past?" Crocodile roared, launching a sand tsunami. Hancock blocked it with her tail, but it was time. Hancock closed her eyes. "Guess I'll kick this up a notch." Her body began to grow, massively. 2 additional arms burst from her sides, plated in shining violet scales. Her hair snakes writhed, becoming longer, sharper, venom glistening at the tips. From her head, 2 new faces emerged, one on her left, one on her right, each fanged, eyes glowing red. Her back arched as her serpent tail tripled in thickness and length. Spikes erupted across her back and down her spine, like jagged obsidian armor. Her roar shattered windows. Back on the ship, Smoker dropped his cigar. "What the hell is that?" Hina took a cautious step back. Tashigi nearly stumbled, staring wide-eyed. Wasn't that her beast form? Luffy, still calm, took a sip of sake. Nah, that was her hybrid mode. He nodded at the monstrous figure towering in the city below. This is her beast form. Took her years to control. But when she did, he smirked. She became a killing machine. Back in the city, Crocodile stared at the now towering Gorgon Queen, snakes hissing, arms flexed, hockey rippling off her like waves of doom. Even Crocodile looked shaken. "You, monster." Hancock bared her fangs. "Wrong. I'm the Empress of Death." She lunged. Crocodile, arms outstretched, her body cloaked in swirling blades of sand, every grain charged with armament hockey. Hancock, fully transformed into her monstrous Gorgon beast form, towering and magnificent, 4 arms, 3 fanged faces, obsidian-scaled tail, serpent hair alive with venom. The air crackled with pure killing intent. "You're not bad," Hancock said calmly, slithering forward, her voices overlapping as her 3 mouths spoke in harmony. Crocodile sneered, raising her hook. "This desert obeys me, snake. You may be strong, but you're on my turf." She slammed her hand into the ground. "Sables. Devourer." The earth shattered as a massive whirlpool of sand erupted beneath Hancock, trying to pull her in like a sinkhole of razors. Crocodile laughed. "This is my kingdom, my element. You can't." Suddenly, the whirlpool froze mid-spin. The sand began to twist unnaturally, in the opposite direction. What? Hancock's hand extended, black hockey surging through her claws. "You forget, I'm also a queen." With a single gesture, Hancock overpowered Crocodile's sand technique, slamming it back into the ground with enough force to shatter a stone pillar. Crocodile flew backward, shocked, but still fighting. Desert Spada. She launched a row of razor-sharp sand blades, slicing toward Hancock like missiles. Hancock didn't dodge. Her tail coiled, and with one fluid motion, she spun, blades deflected by a hockey-infused snake-scaled tail slap that cracked the air like thunder. Crocodile reformed behind her, raising her hook to strike. Only to be met by one of Hancock's left side arms, blocking the hook with pure armament. Another arm shot forward and grabbed Crocodile by the throat. Hancock's main face leaned in close. Her snake hair hissed, then struck, fangs sinking into Crocodile's shoulder. Aghhhhhh. Crocodile fell back, clutching her arm, her body stiffening. A fine glossy sheen began forming over her wound. What is this? My venom. Not only can it kill, but it can also petrify. Hancock's central mouth smirked. Hope you're flexible. Crocodile, panicking, summoned a massive sandstorm, her largest yet, swirling high into the sky, towering over the city. You will bow before me. She thrust both arms down. Sables. Cataclysm. The storm dropped, everything turned gold, ready to consume Hancock and the city beneath. The ground cracked. The shadow sorrow rocked in the harbor. Luffy, still watching from above, didn't even flinch. She's got this. As the sand crashed down, Hancock raised all four arms. Her three faces opened their mouths, glowing with red light. Gorgon's wrath. A blast of shockwave hockey, venom, and petrification energy exploded outward, splitting the incoming sandstorm in half, turning much of it to stone midair, then shattering it like glass. The shockwave hit Crocodile head-on, tearing through her defenses and sending her skidding back across the plaza, slamming into a collapsed wall. Silence. Crocodile twitched, tried to stand. Her leg began turning to stone. Her body trembled, trying to reform. But it was no use. Hancock slithered forward, towering above her. You ruled with sand, illusion, and fear. Her tail slammed down beside Crocodile's head. But this desert has a new empress. Crocodile let out a final gasp, body paralyzed from venom and trauma. Her eyes fluttered shut. Unconscious. The city was still. Rainbase was quiet. And Boa Hancock, beast of the Gorgon Queen, stood victorious in her enemy's empire. As silence settled over the battered ruins of Rainbase and Hancock coiled her massive tail in victory, a sudden gust of whipping wind tore across the plaza. Lightning flashed once, then a figure dropped from the sky in a streak of crimson and black. Phew. Damn, Hancock. You sure put on a show, girl. The dust settled, and standing proudly at the epicenter of the blast zone was a tall, fiercely elegant woman with flowing red hair, a storm-patterned cloak, and eyes that burned like wildfire. Second in command of the Revolutionary Army. Older sister of red-haired Shanks. Red hair Lilith. Lilith strutted across the cracked battlefield, heels crunching on stone. She clapped her hands together. Seriously, Hancock. You handled that dusty desert queen like a true Kuja. A perfect display of control, power, and brutality. You make me proud. Hancock, still in beast form, blushed. Why you honor me, Lilith? Lilith winked. Please. You've earned it. You're still my best student. Hancock transformed back to her humanoid form, brushing some snake hair from her eyes, trying to hide her pride, and failing. Lilith turned toward her son, Luffy, still bandaged, bruised, and drinking from a sake bottle like it was water. Luffy. Luffy blinked. Hey, Mom. Why are you all banged up? Luffy sighed. I got careless fightin' Akainu. But it's fine. The bastard lost an arm, and probably his balls. Lilith's eyebrow twitched. You what? She grabbed his ear, hard. How dare you get careless against the magma mudhead? Haven't I taught you anything, you dragon breath dumbass? Luffy flailed. Ow ow ow, Moon. Stop. I'm already injured. Good. It'll remind you next time not to get cocky. She let go of his ear only to slap the back of his head lightly. Why can't you and Ace be more like Hancock? She's elegant, disciplined, and powerful. To this day, she's still my star pupil. Hancock froze. Her cheeks turned crimson red. Mama Lilith. Damn right, Lilith smirked. If I had 10 more like you, the celestial dragons would be dust. The crew had mixed reactions. Nami, deadpan, wow. Now I get where Luffy gets it from. Zoro, muttering, she's scarier than Mihawk, and Kaido, combined. Sanji, trembling, I'd call her beautiful, but I value my life. Tashigi, I thought Garp was terrifying, this woman's worse. Aya, help. And Luffy. He just sighed, rubbing his head. Yep, Mom's here. Now that the dust had settled and Hancock had thoroughly mopped the desert floor with Crocodile, the Shadow Dragon pirates gathered at the Rainbase port, setting up camp around the Shadow Sorrow for some well-earned rest. Lilith, hands on her hips and cloak flapping in the wind, stood proudly beside Luffy. All right, brat. Introduce me properly to these new faces of yours before I start guessing and scaring the wrong ones. Luffy, rubbing the back of his head, gave a nervous chuckle. Why yeah, sure, Mom. He started pointing to the newer arrivals one by one. This is Nikita, she's got the kilo fruit, and this is Gem, boom boom fruit. Lilith gave them a once-over and grinned. Explosives and gravity. Not bad. Could be useful in siege ops. You two behave and don't blow up the ship. Both nodded quickly. Why yes, ma'am. Absolutely, ma'am. Good, she smirked. This is Marianne, she's our artist. Lilith raised a brow. Art, huh? You better be the kind that inspires revolutions, not just flower petals and teacups. Marianne winked. I painted a mural of Hancock punching a celestial dragon. Want to see? I love her already, Lilith declared. This is Vivi, the princess of Alabasta. And that's Karoo, her duck. Lilith went to Karoo and scratched him behind the head feathers. Ah, you're just the most adorable war bird I've ever seen. Can he fight? He's faster than Sanji in a bakery, Vivi said proudly. Keep him, Lilith said. Might need a courier when the world government starts crying. And this is Robin. Lilith's sharp eyes softened immediately. She stepped forward, placed a hand on Robin's shoulder gently. Nico Robin, your mother says hi. Robin's eyes widened. A pause. Her voice cracked. You spoke to her. A few days ago. She's deep in work, but alive. Proud of you. Robin nodded, blinking away tears. And this little guy is Chopper. Lilith turned. And froze. Is that a talking blue-nosed reindeer with a hat? Chopper blushed. Why yeah, I'm the ship's doctor. Lilith immediately scooped him up, squeezing him like a teddy bear. You are the most adorable thing I've seen in my life, I swear to gods. I'm gonna kidnap you and feed you caramel and apples. Chopper squeaked and hid his face. Don't say embarrassing things. As everyone laughed, the mood turned a little quieter when Luffy scratched his neck, looking down. Mom, there's one more thing I gotta tell you. Lilith's eye twitched. You're not secretly married to a sea king, are you? No, it's just, me and Hancock, we're together. And, so's Nami. Lilith blinked once, twice, then shrugged. That's it. Hell, Luffy, I thought you got someone pregnant. Luffy and Hancock both choked. Nami blushed bright red. So, you're not mad? Luffy asked. Lilith smirked. Why would I be? As long as you treat them both like queens and don't go breaking hearts, I don't give a damn. And trust me, this isn't even the weirdest relationship I've seen. Nami, now very curious, leaned in. Wait, what's the weirdest? Lilith's grin turned wicked. You remember Scopper Gabon, right? Luffy and Hancock blinked. Oh, right. Nami tilted her head. Who's he married to? Lilith dropped the bomb like it was nothing. A giantess. Like, proper Elbaf scale. Me and Shanks were there for the wedding. I was best man. Shanks officiated it since he was the ship's captain. The crew went dead silent. They exchanged vows while she was holding him in her hand like a doll. The cake was the size of a marine battleship. Chopper's eyes sparkled. That's so romantic. Sanji muttered, nosebleeding slightly. Lucky bastard. Lilith turned to the crew. All right, you've impressed me. You've survived a vice admiral, defeated an admiral, and stomped Crocodile into the ground. She folded her arms. You're not just rookies anymore. You're making waves. She looked at her son. Keep it up, Shadow Dragon. The world's watching now. As the stars began to dot the Alabasta night sky and the fires from the celebration camp burned low, Luffy stood beside his mother, introducing the newest allies. These two are Smoker and Hina, they've joined the revolution. Lilith eyed them closely, her expression unreadable. So, former Marines, huh? Interesting choice. Smoker nodded, unflinching. Hina raised a brow but stayed composed. We've made our decision. We serve freedom now. Lilith's cold stare slowly melted into a sharp grin. Then welcome. When you reach the stronghold, you're training under me. Both froze. Luffy muttered under his breath. Poor bastards. Then, Lilith turned serious. Her voice dropped low. Luffy, have you done any digging on that fruit, the one that Teach stole? Luffy blinked. Yeah, I've got something on it. He jogged below deck, returning moments later with the Devil Fruit Encyclopedia, a heavy, weathered tome filled with hand-sketched diagrams and handwritten notes. Lilith flipped through it with expert precision, her fingers suddenly freezing mid-page. Shit, she whispered. Not that one, she read aloud. Yami yami no mi. Logia. Darkness fruit. Allows user to control and become darkness, absorbing everything into a void of gravity, nullifies the powers of other devil fruits through contact. Her eyes darkened. I should have known. Smoker's cigar dropped from his mouth. Wait, this is real. Hina's cool demeanor slipped. A logia that can erase other devil fruit powers. Tashigi, standing nearby, tightened her grip on her sword. Who is Teach? Lilith's voice dropped low, laced with venom. Marshal D. Teach was once a member of Whitebeard's crew. Kept his head down for decades. No ambition, no presence. Then one day, he killed a crewmate in cold blood and vanished, taking the yami no mi with him. A fruit so dangerous it was believed to be cursed. That man is more dangerous than any admiral. She looked straight at Luffy, Hancock, and Yamato. If you ever run into him, kill him, no mercy. Stop him. Yamato's expression hardened. Hancock's eyes narrowed, venom flaring slightly. Luffy simply nodded, jaw clenched. Got it. If I see him, he's done. Lilith slammed the book shut with a loud thud. That flame-brained fool, Ace, relies too much on his fruit. If Teach targets him. She didn't finish the sentence. She didn't need to. Everyone felt the weight of what wasn't said. Chopper trembled slightly. Nami put a hand on Luffy's. Robin, cold and calculating, filed the name Teach in her memory. Lilith turned to her son again. This may be the enemy you'll have to face when the world starts burning. The evening calm was shattered when Lilith, arms crossed and eyes narrowed, turned to Luffy with that voice, the voice. By the way, when exactly did you last see Ace? Luffy froze. The rest of the crew, Hancock, Nami, Chopper, even Zoro, slowly turned toward him like it was a firing squad. A day ago. Lilith's eyes sharpened like blades. A day ago. She took a threatening step forward. And you let him charge off after Teach. Am I the only one in this family with a brain? Do I need to do everything myself? Even Hancock and Nami, both powerful warriors, now looked nervous. Hancock. Luffy, say something smart. Anything. Nami. Oh no. This is beyond sleeping on the deck punishment. Richie, Nami's lion, gave a sorrowful whimper and slowly stepped aside like, you're on your own, boss. In perfect slapstick fashion, Hancock and Nami physically pushed Luffy forward like sacrificial lambs. Luffy blinked. Lilith stared down at him with a dead-eyed glare that could crack stone. Well, she asked, low and dangerous. What happened? Luffy, sweating bullets, started slowly retreating. Well, Yamato was getting ready all day, you know. She wanted to see him, hug him, confess, just so happened we saw him at a tavern in Nanohana. He backed in to escape, so me, Nami, Hancock, Richie, and Yamato went in. We said hi. Suddenly, Yamato stepped forward. Her voice trembled, eyes watery, lips wobbling. He didn't even notice me. The deck went quiet. He called me, buddy, gave me a fist bump, said he had business, and just stormed off. Chopper gasped. Robin lowered her book. Zoro looked like someone had stabbed his pride. And Luffy. He dove behind the rock formation like it was a bunker. A faint tremor shook the ground as Lilith's haki flared. Quote. He did what? Boom. A blast of Conqueror's haki cracked part of the ground beneath her feet. A few seagulls in the distance passed out mid-flight. Kobe screamed and leapt into Kaya's arms. Sanji hid behind Pudding. Even Vivi fainted. That flame-brained son of a sea cow has one perfect girl in the world who loves him, and he fist bumps her like a bro at a bar. Lilith's fists clenched. Smoke curled around her shoulders. Hancock whispered to Nami, I think we need to book it to another continent. Luffy peeked out from behind the rock, voice small. We were gonna tell him, next time. Lilith's glare returned like fire meeting oil. There better be a next time. Because if that idiot breaks Yamato's heart again. Her red hair flared like fire. She cracked her knuckles. I will break his spine, and then I'll make him apologize. Yamato, meanwhile, was comforted by Nami, Hancock, and Pudding, all of whom were now actively plotting, Operation Force Ace to realize he's an idiot. As the dust settled and Crocodile lay unconscious in the sand, Lilith stepped forward, brushing windblown red hair from her face. Her expression was calm, composed, but underneath, still fuming from the Ace incident. She turned to Vivi, gently resting a hand on the princess's shoulder. Don't worry about the rebels, girl. I already sent Koala and Sabo to speak with them. Vivi's eyes widened. Already? Lilith nodded. With irrefutable evidence on who caused the drought. Between that and Sabo's silver tongue, the rebellion will be over before nightfall. Her gaze then shifted toward the unconscious, bound body of Crocodile, or rather, Crocodile. Isla. As for her, I'll take Isla with me. Luffy, still rubbing his ribs from his mom's earlier disciplinary ear yank, grinned. Good. But the rest of Baroque works. They're mine now. Lilith smirked. Smoker, arms crossed and still adjusting to the fact that he was now technically a revolutionary, turned toward Luffy. So, we're parting ways soon. I'm no longer a marine, but I am curious. He leaned in slightly. What the hell is your plan here? Luffy's eyes gleamed. He pointed a thumb toward Rainbase and its newly rebranded casino fortress. Simple. I'm setting up a black market hub. Smoker raised an eyebrow. Yup. Exotic goods. Custom weapons. Narcotics, but no slaves. Ever. He jabbed a finger toward Hancock, who stood behind him like a shadow in heels. I want to flush out someone nasty. A trafficker. A SBAG who calls himself Joker. Smoker stiffened. Wait, Joker, you know who that is? Luffy nodded. Slowly. You do too, you just know him by another name. He crossed his arms, smirking. Don Quixote Doflamingo. Smoker's face twisted with realization and rage. That pink freak. I knew he was up to something behind the scenes. Luffy clapped him on the back. Don't worry, Smokey. Now that you're with my mom and dad, you've got access to everything. Smoker leaned in like it was a drug deal. Can you get those rare Firedrake Black Label cigars? Luffy smirked. No problem. Hina, standing behind him, facepalmed. From Marine Captain to Revolutionary, now buying from the black market. This is my life now. Chopper leaned into Robin and whispered. Is this how adults work? Robin just sipped her wine and replied. More or less. With the sun rising over Rainbase, the battered yet victorious crew stood near the ship, preparing for their next moves. At the dock, she-devil Lilith stood tall, her crimson cloak fluttering in the desert wind. At her side were Smoker and Hina, both wearing neutral but resigned expressions. Between them, Smoker slung the unconscious and bound Crocodile Isla over his shoulder like a sack of potatoes. Heavy for someone who used to be all sand, he muttered. Lilith turned to Luffy and smiled with approval, rare and terrifying. Keep the world shaking, brat. And stay out of mortal danger until I get back, or I'll make sure Hancock and Nami both dump you. Luffy saluted. No promises. And with that, Lilith, Smoker, and Hina boarded their ship, sails catching the wind as they departed for the Revolutionary Army's nearest outpost. Back on the Shadow Sorrow, Luffy turned to Chopper and Kaya, who were already prepping medical supplies. Get the rest of Baroque work stable. Once they're patched up, lock them in the brig, nicely, for now. Chopper saluted. On it, Captain. Kaya adjusted her gloves. I'll make sure no one dies before their trial. Luffy dusted his hands off and looked to the rest of the crew. Time to head to the capital. We need to inform King Cobra of what went down, and begin negotiations to make Alabasta officially our territory. Nami, arms crossed, scowled. Why don't you just fly us there? You've got giant dragon wings. Luffy raised an eyebrow, then pointed at his heavily bandaged shoulder. Still busted. I need at least a week for the wing to fully heal. Nami deadpanned. I don't want to walk through the desert. That's not fair. Luffy grinned. Okay, then stay here. You can eat leftover rice balls with Chopper, Kaya, Gem, and Usopp. Sanji leaned in and whispered with a wink. Don't worry, the galley's still loaded with gourmet meals. We even have ice cream. Luffy continued, dramatically gesturing toward the distance. Meanwhile, the rest of us will be soaking in the royal palace's luxurious rooms, hot baths, all the 5-star meals. FWOOOSH. He blinked. Nami was gone. Already decked out in stylish desert gear, she was riding Richie full speed across the sand. Come on, slowpokes, she yelled back. We have a palace to raid. Hancock smiled fondly. That's our girl. 2 grueling days had passed since the Shadow Dragon pirates began their trek across the Alabastan Desert toward the royal capital, Alubarna. The sun was merciless. The sand burned. Spirits were low. That is, for most of them. Hancock and Vivi, both in their beast and hybrid zone forms, were having the time of their lives. Hancock's massive serpentine body slithered smoothly across the dunes, gliding over the sand like royalty on parade. Her snake hair danced in the wind, and she looked genuinely radiant under the blazing sun. Vivi, in her fox of the sands beast form, bounded across dunes like a golden mirage, her fur shimmering as she darted through the desert heat with ease and grace. This is paradise. Hancock sighed dreamily. It really is, Vivi laughed. I could live out here. Meanwhile, a caravan of misery trudged behind them. Nami, drenched in sweat, was staggering beside Richie, who was panting heavily, tongue out, clearly on the verge of collapsing. Yamato, normally a powerhouse, had her sleeves rolled up and her hair matted with sweat. Ah, I hate this heat. Give me a blizzard, please. Sanji and Pudding were visibly dehydrated. Kobe looked like he'd seen death. Kuro's cloak was full of sand. Mikita was literally dragging her feet. Even Luffy, the Shadow Dragon himself, was swaying. I see it. I see it. Luffy pointed. The capital. Water. Showers. Life. Nami, with the fury of 1,000 suns, screamed. This was a stupid idea, you overgrown lizard. Richie, with a dramatic roar, flopped down in the sand. RRRAAAWWRRRGHHH. Translation. I'm never doing this again. Alvida, fanning herself with a piece of parchment, muttered. How in the world did we forget to pack enough water? As the shimmering white spires of Alubarna came into view, Luffy gasped. Ought. A shower. Second. A whole barrel of water. Third. Negotiations. He collapsed onto Richie's back, half melted. From the front of the group, Hancock and Vivi finally noticed their crew's pitiful state. The two glided back toward them, casting long shadows over the sun-stricken pirates. Hancock, tilting her head. What's wrong with them? Vivi, blinking innocently. Beats me. They high-fived with their tails as the rest of the crew groaned. The golden gates of King Cobra's palace opened wide as the Shadow Dragon pirates approached. Trumpets sounded, guards stood at attention, and waiting at the grand entrance stood King Nefertari Cobra and his loyal steward Agaram, both smiling warmly. Vivi ran ahead, her eyes misting as she threw herself into her father's embrace. Father. My dear Vivi, Cobra whispered, wrapping his arms around her. You've returned, safe and strong. Agaram, teary-eyed and waving dramatically, added. Princess. Oh, thank the stars. Cobra, turning to Luffy, stepped forward with regal poise. Monkey D. Luffy, no, Shadow Dragon. You have done my family and my kingdom a great service. Luffy smiled and scratched his head. No problem, old man. Just keeping my promise. Cobra nodded. Then allow me to repay that honor. You and your crew will have private rooms, a grand banquet, and most importantly, he smiled knowingly, a cold shower. Luffy, Nami, Yamato, and Sanji simultaneously collapsed in gratitude. After being refreshed, the crew split between the men's and women's luxurious hot baths, built from white marble and perfumed with desert herbs. The steam rising from the hot waters felt like heaven. In the men's side, Luffy, Zoro, Kuro, Sanji, Kobe, and Richie the Lion were soaking in silence, until Sanji whispered to Kobe. Pissed, Kobe, you know this is a once-in-a-lifetime palace, right? Yeah, then we can't waste this chance. The women's bath has Vivi, Robin, Nami, Hancock, Pudding, Yamato, Mikita, Marianne, Tashigi, and Alvida. We'll just peek. Innocent. Kobe paled. Sanji. That's insane. I can't. Don't think. Just climb. As the two scaled the divider wall like cockroaches, Luffy and Zoro stared at them from the other side of the pool. Hey, Luffy muttered. Perverts at 12 o'clock, Zoro said, sighing. 3, 2, 1. With perfect timing, Luffy and Zoro launched out of the water, and wham, shoved both Sanji and Kobe over the bath wall, and straight into hell. From the women's side, screams rang out. Kya! Get out, you degenerates! Die, perverts! Nami, Robin, Vivi, Hancock, Pudding, Yamato, Alvida, Tashigi, Mikita, and Marianne exploded into fury. All of them, dripping wet, grabbed whatever weapons or fists they had and rained hockey-powered vengeance on the two unlucky fools. Sanji, PP Pudding, wait, my love. Pudding, you're dead, curly brow. Kobe, I didn't see anything. Please. Meanwhile, back in the men's bath. Luffy, Zoro, Kuro, and Richie were doubled over in laughter. Richie let out a wheezing roar, slapping his paw against the stone floor. Luffy wiped a tear. That's what they get. Yup, Zoro chuckled. Deserved. Then Luffy turned serious, raising his voice just loud enough. Sanji, Kobe, for looking at Nami and Hancock, you're both on 3 weeks of deck duty and night watch. Unless Yamato breaks your bones first. Gladly, Yamato grinned, cracking her knuckles. Sanji and Kobe's voices, broken and pitiful, echoed from behind the bath wall. Luffy, help us. After the chaos calmed and the crew dressed, Robin respectfully approached King Cobra in the palace library. Your Majesty, may I ask a favor? Cobra nodded. Speak freely, Nico Robin. May I examine the poneglyph hidden beneath the palace? I promise to treat it with care. Cobra looked thoughtful, then smiled. Yes, I know of your search for the true history. Come, I shall guide you myself. Robin bowed deeply. Thank you, Your Majesty. Inside the throne chamber of Alubarna, a large golden table was set for the diplomatic summit. Seated across from King Cobra were Monkey D. Luffy, Boa Hancock, Kuro, and Galdino Mr. 3, the Shadow Dragon Pirates' core strategists for political and territory matters. Cobra leaned forward, resting his hands on the polished surface. Let's begin. You saved my kingdom from Crocodile. What are your terms, Captain Luffy? Luffy smirked, his bandage twitching a little as Hancock gently readjusted it. Simple. Alabasta becomes part of my territory. In return, no one messes with you. Ever. Marines, pirates, underworld, they all answer to me if they touch this land. Kuro adjusted his glasses. Rainbase will become a shared port. You keep the taxes and internal governance. We handle protection, intelligence, and major trade. Galdino nodded seriously. We'll install surveillance, defenses, and secure the desert routes. In exchange, you allow us to quietly base Shadow Dragon assets here, discreetly. Cobra, after a long pause, stood and extended a hand toward Luffy. Agreed. From this day, Alabasta is protected by the Shadow Dragon pirates. My kingdom shall no longer kneel to the world government. Luffy stood, met the handshake, and grinned. Good choice, old man. In a side corridor, Sanji was sitting on a bench with his head hung low. Across from him stood Pudding, arms crossed and eyes full of hurt. I'm disappointed in you. Her words echoed in his mind like gunshots. I thought you changed. Sanji's cigarette fell from his lips. His eyes went wide. That wasn't the usual comedic slap or Tsunere shout, this was genuine disappointment. His heart twisted like a dagger in the ribs. Pudding, he whispered. Why does that hurt so damn much? He clutched his chest, not from a punch, but from the truth. Do I actually have feelings for her? Mary Ann stood with arms akimbo, scolding Kobe like a furious older sister. You're supposed to be Luffy's student. What kind of example are you setting? Kobe, bruised and red-faced, bowed repeatedly. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to look. Sanji dragged me into it. Behind them, Mikita, Vivi, and Nami were holding back a growling Yamato, who was literally cracking the palace tile with her bare feet. I swear, Yamato snarled, I'm going to rip their spines out and use them as back scratchers. Mikita whispered nervously. Maybe we let her throw a punch. Just one. No punches. Nami hissed. Luffy already punished them. Not enough. Yamato shouted. Back in the throne room, the agreement was finalized. Cobra, before the gathered guards, ministers, and Vivi, unrolled a sealed document bearing both his royal seal and Luffy's sigil, the Shadow Dragon insignia. From this day forward, Alabasta is under the protection of the Shadow Dragon pirates. Our sovereignty is intact, but our enemies will know that crossing us means war with them. Rainbase, Kuro added, will now serve as the Shadow Dragon outpost in the Grand Line. Trumpets sounded, and a black flag with the Shadow Dragon sigil, a coiled dragon wrapped around a dark sun, was raised alongside Alabasta's. The people outside the palace erupted into cheers. The pirate flag didn't mean danger. Not this time. It meant peace. The morning sun filtered through the palace windows as the group descended into the hidden royal tomb beneath Alubarna. King Cobra led the way with a lantern, his steps slow and steady down the spiraling staircase. Following him were Robin, calm but eager; Hancock, protective as ever; Vivi, curious and nervous; and finally, Luffy, who shuffled along with a massive hangover, hair messy and eyes half closed. "My head," Luffy groaned, leaning on the wall. Never drinking that much sake and wine again." Hancock gave him a soft, amused smile. "You were lucky. If Nami had followed through on her plan to run naked through the halls, your mother would have killed all three of us." Luffy shivered, remembering last night. Nami, flushed from sake, suddenly slamming her cup down. "Luffy, Hancock, we're getting married. All three of us." She had dramatically stripped off her top, declared herself queen of the ship, then promptly collapsed face first on the bed. Thank the heavens for instant sleep, otherwise, the royal corridors would have seen a whole new level of chaos. At the base of the staircase, ancient doors carved with coiled dragons and sand patterns opened into the royal crypt against stone walls etched with history. In the center stood the poneglyph, towering and indestructible, its blue surface gleaming in the torchlight. Robin's eyes sparkled. "Beautiful, this is the one Crocodile was after." She stepped closer, brushing her hand against the carved text. He was right, this isn't just history. It's a blueprint. Instructions for creating the ancient weapon, Pluton. Hancock's face hardened. A weapon capable of destroying entire islands. Robin nodded grimly. And Crocodile wanted it to claim the world. As Robin read further, her voice slowed. Nefertari, D. Vivi froze. What? Robin turned to her slowly. "Vivi, you're a D. Your true name is Nefertari D. Vivi." The chamber fell silent, the weight of history pressing down. Vivi trembled. I never knew." Cobra stepped forward, placing a steadying hand on his daughter's shoulder. "We kept it secret, for generations. Our family has long borne the will of D. Only the royal line and the poneglyph keepers have known. To reveal it to the world, would paint a target on your back like no other." Luffy, leaning against the wall, cracked one eye open. "Hey, figures. You've got that same fire in you. D's always do." Hancock nodded softly, understanding the gravity of the moment. Cobra exhaled, his voice grave. "Our true name is Nefertari D. We have always stood apart from the celestial dragons, and for that, the world government has watched us with suspicion for 800 years. Robin turned back to the poneglyph, heart pounding. And with this knowledge, the world is closer than ever to its greatest upheaval. The tomb's air still clung to their skin as the group emerged back into the warmth of the Alubarna Palace corridors. Luffy, looking more alert now after a splash of cold water on his face, turned to Vivi with a half smile. "So, what's your plan now, Vivi?" Vivi paused, blue eyes flickering with uncertainty, then resolve. "I want to go with you. But, I don't want to abandon my people." Before Luffy could reply, Cobra's voice cut in, deep and weathered. "Vivi, Admiral Akainu came to this palace. He told me that if you ever showed any connection to Luffy, even the slightest, you would be declared a criminal. And now that Alabasta is under the protection of the Shadow Dragon pirates." Luffy nodded grimly and finished the sentence. "You'll be wanted soon." Vivi took a long breath, her hand tightening on Karu's feathers. "I know. That's why I'm going with you." Luffy blinked. "Wait, seriously?" She gave him a fierce look. "If they're going to come after me anyway, then I'd rather be with people I trust. My family, my crew." Hancock gave her a warm nod of approval. "Good. We need more queens on this ship anyway." Luffy turned to Robin and Vivi, his voice quieter. "All right. After this, we're heading to Skypia. There's a poneglyph there, Robin. One you really need to see." Robin's eyes lit up with scholarly hunger. "Skypia, yes. That one's unique. I've read ancient mentions of a sky-bound scripture." Luffy grinned and leaned in closer, whispering so only Vivi, Robin, and Cobra could hear. "After that, we're going to Amazon Lily. Because I plan to get married." Robin raised a single brow. Hancock smiled sweetly, almost too sweetly. "We're both going to propose to Nami." Vivi's jaw dropped. "You're proposing to Nami too?" Hancock nodded with pride. "Yes. Our lioness deserves to be a proper wife." Robin rubbed her temples. This gives new meaning to the phrase, wedding bells. The grand doors of the royal palace closed behind the group as they stepped into the luxurious meeting hall. Polished marble floors, golden pillars, and flowing silk banners welcomed them after the exhausting trek. Hancock, her steps graceful but voice carrying excitement, spoke first. "Well, I always wanted to be married on Amazon Lily. Luffy and I talked it over, it was either Skypia, Fishman Island, or my home. And since we're both marrying Nami who is also from there." She trailed off, suddenly covering her mouth with her hand, whispering to herself. "Oh, shit." Robin narrowed her eyes, immediately catching the slip. "Wait, what did you just say?" "Nami has roots in Amazon Lily." Luffy sighed, rubbing the back of his neck. "Guess the cat's out of the bag, yeah. She does. Elder Nyan told me herself." The room fell into stunned silence. Vivi's eyes widened. Cobra froze mid-step. Hancock folded her arms, explaining with a tone of gravity. "Many years ago, the daughter of Elder Nyan died. But she left behind a baby girl. That baby was taken by a marine officer to the East Blue. Adopted. Raised away from Amazon Lily." Robin's voice dropped to a whisper. "Nami." Luffy nodded. "Yup, she's one of you. One of the Kuja's lost daughters." Hancock added with a sharp, almost amused edge. "And it's not a coincidence that Nami looks almost exactly like her grandmother." Hancock reached into her pocket and produced an old, weathered photograph, edges curled with age. She placed it on the table. This was taken, nearly 39 years ago. The image was grainy but unmistakable. Whitebeard, towering and proud. Kaido, younger, brutal, and shirtless, a jug of sake in hand. Big Mom, cackling with food in her mouth. And standing among them, a striking orange-haired woman, eyes sharp as daggers, wearing a Kuja cloak with a serpent motif. Robin, Vivi, and Cobra leaned over the table. Their jaws dropped. "Cobra. That's her." Hancock. "Yes. Nami's grandmother. A warrior of the Rocks pirates, and the most feared Kuja of her era." Robin whispered, awed. Luffy just grinned. "Hey, figures. Explains why she hits so hard." As they settled in, Luffy grew serious. He glanced at Hancock, then at Robin and Vivi. "This whole thing about Nami's bloodline, the Rock's photo, her being Elder Nyan's granddaughter. It stays a secret. No one tells Nami." Hancock nodded. "We're going to surprise her. After we visit Skypia, we'll go to Amazon Lily. Her wedding gift will be meeting her biological grandmother." Vivi beamed. "That's actually really sweet." Luffy turned to her, narrowing his eyes. "Especially you, Vivi. You're the biggest chatterbox on the ship." Vivi was pouting. "I am not a chatterbox," she huffed. Cobra chuckled kindly. "My dear, you once told an entire tavern how you accidentally kicked a garum into a cactus." "That was one time." As they entered the throne room, they found a garum already there, sweating bullets and clutching a freshly printed world news. "Your Majesty, Princess, we've got a huge problem." He held up the paper. The headline blared. "Alabasta lost. Shadow Dragon Luffy and Snake Princess Hancock claim former kingdom. Crocodile of the Seven Warlords defeated. Admiral Akainu, stripped of honor and something else." A garum trembled. "It says, Admiral Akainu tried to bring peace. That you, Luffy, punched him in the manhood so hard that." He swallowed. He was permanently castrated. Luffy dropped to the floor, laughing so hard he was gasping for air. "Oh, man, what a load of crap. No honor. In the name of justice. Bahahaha." Hancock, while trying to keep a straight face, smiled smugly. "Well, you did castrate him." Luffy, wheezing, clutched his stomach. "Yeah, okay, that part's true. But the rest, what a fairy tale." Even Cobra couldn't help but chuckle. "Seems the world government's spin machine is in full gear. But now the world knows you defeated an admiral." A garum gulped as he read the next line. "With deep regret, we declare Princess Nefertari Vivi a traitor to the world government. Sources claim she orchestrated the betrayal of Alabasta and its transformation into a lawless pirate stronghold. Furthermore," a garum read, voice tightening, "this paper has learned that the so-called Shadow Dragon is nothing more than a reckless playboy engaged in an open love triangle with both the snake PRR Lady Nami." The room went dead silent. Then, Hancock snatched the paper and crushed it in her fist. WHO wrote this filth. I will crush their soul to stone. Luffy squinted at the blurry photo of the reporter in the article. Wait a sec, I know that guy. Wasn't he one of the wine servers at the banquet? Vivi's face turned beet red. He was right behind us when you said. Robin coughed. When Hancock said she couldn't wait to have some fun with you and Nami once you got back to your chambers. Luffy, beet red now, hey. That could have meant anything. Cobra, Vivi, and Robin, in unison. Yeah, sure, totally. Agaram coughed into his fist, trying to move things along. Also, new wanted posters have been issued. For your entire crew. Even Princess Vivi, and the 3 former Marines. Luffy's eyes lit up. Really? Finally. Get the whole crew in here. Let's see how scary we all look. Within moments, the entire crew was gathered in the throne room. Nami, still in pajamas, holding a half-empty wine bottle, and wearing sunglasses, grumbled. This better be worth waking up for. Agaram laid them all out like treasure. The new bounties read. Shadow Dragon Pirates Crew and Allies. Monkey D. Luffy, Shadow Dragon, 850 million berry. Boa Hancock, Snake Princess, 800 million berry. Yamato, Oni Princess, 530 million berry. Nami, Panther Lady, 150 million berry. Vivi, Fox of the Sands, 120 million berry. Roronoa Zoro, Demon Hunter, 110 million berry. Tashigi, Clumsy Blade Babe, 62 million berry. Nico Robin, Devil Child, 99 million berry. Sanji, Pervert Cook, 80 million berry. Kuro, Dark Strategist, 75 million berry. Alvida, Slip Queen, 52 million berry. Pudding, Sweet Bullet, 55 million berry. Makita, White Witch, 44 million berry. Marianne, Color Hex, 38 million berry. Kaya, Thunder Woman, 155 million berry. Gem, Boom Boom Idiot, 45 million berry. Usopp, Longnose Sniper King, 30 million berry. Tony Chopper, Ferocious Cotton Ball, 100 berry. Kobe, Rubber Boy, 39 million berry. Galdino, Mr. 3 Candle Clown, 30 million berry. Smoker, White Hunter, 210 million berry. Hina, Black Cage, 180 million berry. The Grand Hall of King Cobra's palace was alive with laughter, tears, and the occasional murderous aura. Luffy lounged on a silk couch like he owned the place, flipping through the freshly delivered newspapers and bounty posters. Bwahahaha. Luffy bellowed, slamming the paper on the table. Did you guys see what they wrote about us? I'm a playboy, Hancock's a pervert, and Nami's in a love triangle with us. Hancock's eye twitched as her face darkened. Which worm dared write this filth? She hissed, her aura turning the air to stone. Nami's panther zone tail lashed, and sparks of static ran over her fur. Find me that reporter, she growled. I'll skin them alive. Sanji, on the other hand, was curled up in a corner, weeping into his cook's scarf. Pete Pervert Cook, 80 million, my life is over, women will think I'm a criminal and a creep. Alvida smirked and patted his head. Don't worry, hubby, I'll protect you. Sanji screamed into the floor. Tashigi stomped her boot in outrage, waving her poster like a sword. Clumsy Blade Babe. First I'm a marine swordswoman, you can't call me that. The crew collectively ignored her. Kobe sat cross-legged, staring at his first bounty poster in horror. Kobe, Rubber Boy. Bounty, 39 million berry. His face twitched as he read it for the 10th time. Rubber Boy, that makes me sound like some stretchy clown or a chew toy. Tashigi leaned in. At least you're not called Clumsy Blade Babe, she muttered, glaring at her own poster. This is insulting. I am a swordswoman, a marine trained, disciplined. Kobe raised a finger. But, you do trip during fights sometimes. Tashigi hit him on the head. Shut up, Rubber Boy. As the crew stared, Luffy grinned. I can't wait to show Usopp, Kaya, Gem, and Chopper their posters. Usopp will brag for a week, Kaya's gonna faint, and Chopper, PFFT, biwahahaha. From the corner, Sanji wailed, why am I the pervert? Luffy shrugged. Because you are. Hancock crossed her arms, seething. Luffy, let's go hunt that reporter. I'll turn them to stone, Then Nami can use her claws, and maybe feed him to Salome. Nami's tail lashed in agreement. Sounds fair. After an evening of rest, feasting, and bounty poster chaos, the Shadow Dragon pirates stood outside the palace gates, preparing for their journey back to Rainbase. King Cobra, ever the gracious host, clapped Luffy on the shoulder. I've ordered fresh camels, guards to carry your supplies, and barrels of desert water. You'll reach Rainbase with ease. Luffy grinned. Thanks, old man. You're all right for a king. Cobra chuckled. Just, don't wreck the city on your way back. The crew looked hilarious atop the camels. Zoro's camel kept going in circles. Sanji's kept giving him side eyes like it knew he was a pervert. Kaya, Usopp, Jem, and Chopper were waiting under a shaded canopy by the Shadow Sorrow. They rushed forward as the crew arrived. Captain, Kaya waved. We finished grading the ship. And Chopper made a new healing salve. Luffy grinned and pulled out the posters. Check it out. He slapped them on a table. Kaya, Thunder Woman, 155 million berry. Usopp, Longnose Sniper King, 30 million berry. Jem, Boom Boom Idiot, 45 million berry. Chopper, Ferocious Cotton Ball, 100 berry. Usopp stared at his Longnose Sniper King. I don't even have that name. And look at the picture, I'm crying. Luffy laughed so hard he rolled off the bench. Bwahahaha. You look awesome, Usopp. Jem frowned. Boom Boom Idiot. That's not even cool. I demand a reprint. Sanji patted him. Welcome to the club, buddy. Chopper blinked. What? 100. That's less than a carrot at the market. Robin patted his head. You're still our strongest cotton ball. Chopper sniffled. You guys are the best. Kaya, however, was radiant. Her poster showed her surrounded by crackling lightning, elegant and fierce. I look beautiful. Nami smirked. Welcome to being a real pirate. Suddenly, Pudding's face darkened. She walked up to Luffy, concern in her voice. Captain, we need to contact Katakuri, Brûlé, and Smoothie. Mama's going to see these bounties, and she'll want to know how I escaped. Luffy nodded, turning serious. Right, tell them to meet us in Java if they can. If not, send Katakuri to Fishman Island. Whitebeard's still my ally. He'll protect them. Pudding smiled, grateful. Got it. In the women's quarters of the Shadow Sorrow, Pudding sprinted straight to the ornate full-length mirror, her heels clacking against the floor. Her third eye glowed with panic as she pressed her hands to the glass. Big Sis Brûlé. Big Sis Brûlé. The mirror rippled, and Brûlé's worried face appeared, sweat on her brow. Pudding. We know, Mama is furious. She found out Smoothie, Katakuri, and I helped you escape. Pudding's voice cracked. How? Brûlé grimaced. Perospero overheard everything. He reported straight to Mama. We barely made it to this little island far from Toto Land. If she catches us, we're dead. Luffy suddenly appeared behind Pudding, leaning into the mirror frame with his usual casual confidence, though his eyes were sharp. Oi, Brûlé, where are you now? Brûlé hesitated, then answered, an island far from Toto Land. Safe for now, but Mama's already moving ships. Luffy exhaled in relief. Good. Listen carefully, go to Fishman Island. I'll contact a friend there who will help you. It'd be easy for you to come here, but, if Mama herself is moving, she might already be aiming for us. I don't want her catching you first. Brûlé nodded quickly. Understood. Just, make sure your friend knows to call my name through her mirror, and I'll open the way. Luffy nodded. After you eat and rest, head to Sabayati Archipelago. Go to Shaki's bar. She and Rayleigh will help get you to Amazir after our next stop. Brûlé's jaw dropped. Rayleigh. And Amazon Lily. No way. Luffy's grin widened. Just trust me, I've got this. Brûlé hesitated, then nodded. Alright, but Luffy, tell Hancock that Mama is coming. She still wants revenge for Cracker. The mirror rippled and went still, leaving the room silent except for Pudding's uneasy breathing. Hancock, who had silently stepped into the doorway, clenched her fists, her Gorgon aura filling the hall. Let her come, she said coldly. I will crush anyone who dares threaten my husband or our crew. Luffy smirked. Then it's settled. We finish Java and Skypia, and then we get ready for Big Mom. The Shadow Dragon pirates gathered in the grand hall of the Shadow Sorrow, the desert wind howling outside. Luffy stood at the head of the table, arms crossed, his black coat swaying like a captain about to announce war. "Listen up," he said. "We'll probably be fighting a Yonko soon. Big Mom is coming for us." The room went silent for a moment, then Hancock's hair began to twist into snakes, her eyes glowing with killing intent. "Let her come," Hancock said coldly, her voice like venom. "I will crush anyone who dares threaten my husband." Luffy held up a hand. "Wait, Hancock. Even though Katakuri, Smoothie, and Brûlé aren't with her, she still has other powerful officers. We can't take her lightly." Pudding gulped, her third eye blinking nervously. "Luffy, who is this friend you're sending them on Fishman Island?" Before Luffy could answer, Yamato grinned, leaning back in her chair. "Oh, I know. It's that one person so beautiful even Hancock gets jealous." Hancock whipped around, hissing. "That is not true. She is merely a friend. A crybaby, but a friend." The entire crew blinked, confused. Luffy grinned, rubbing the back of his head. "Our contact is Princess Shirahoshi, the mermaid princess of Fishman Island. She's huge, she's sweet, and she cries a lot. But she's my friend, and I trust her." Sanji's eyes turned into hearts before Luffy even finished. He knelt on the floor dramatically, hands clasped like he'd seen an angel descend. "I have found my destiny. The goddess of the sea. My." Bam! Not the usual frying pan. This time, a cast iron skillet came down on his head so hard the ship shook. Pudding pinched the bridge of her nose and sighed. "Okay, Gem, get ready, pervy boy needs therapy again." Sanji groaned, clutching his head. "Even if my head hurts, she was talking to me." Pudding rolled her eyes but smirked, leaning down to kiss him lightly on the cheek. "I forgive you, for peeking in the baths," she whispered. Sanji froze, his eyes spinning like pinwheels as steam erupted from his nose, and he collapsed in bliss. After the evening strategy meeting, Luffy retreated to his private quarters, grinning ear to ear. The moonlight spilled across the room as Hancock and Nami followed him in, each with different expressions, Hancock elegant and serene, Nami curious but suspicious. Luffy rummaged in a cabinet and pulled out a bottle of rum and 3 glasses. "All right, tonight we celebrate," he declared. He poured 3 drinks, handing one to Hancock, one to Nami, and keeping one for himself. Nami blinked. "Celebrate what?" Luffy's grin widened. "You're gonna love our next stops. First, we're heading to Java. After that, Sky Island." Nami tilted her head. "Sky Island." Hancock smirked, hair shifting slightly into snakes. "Yes. Luffy and I went there a year ago. We even killed a man named Enel, he had Kaya's devil fruit." Luffy nodded. "We left a small fortune in gold up there. Once we grab it, we're going to Amazon Lily to get married." Nami nearly choked on her drink. "Married?" Luffy tilted his head. "Well, it wouldn't be fair if only me and Hancock got married." He smiled warmly. "So I want you too, Nami." Nami froze, her cheeks going red. Slowly, a smile crept across her face. She hugged them both tightly and kissed them in turn. "I accept. I love both of you two idiots." Then, Nami gulped down her drink in one go. "Ah, that's good rum." Hancock suddenly went pale. "Nami, your engagement ring was in that glass." The room went dead silent. Nami's eyes went wide. "What?" Luffy scratched the back of his head sheepishly. "It was supposed to be a surprise, it had a big diamond and everything." Nami's face turned red with fury. "You put my engagement ring in a drink." Luffy shrugged. "Well, you could just go to Chopper for some laxatives." "That was the wrong thing to say. I am not going to shit my engagement ring out, Luffy." The entire ship echoed with her scream, and for the rest of the night, Luffy hid behind Hancock while Nami rampaged through the quarters like an enraged panther. The next morning, the Shadow Sorrow rocked gently in the desert port of Rainbase. Luffy lay sprawled across a deck chair, covered in scratches and bite marks. His hair was messy, and one of his boots was missing. This was the price of romantic stupidity, aka Nami finding out he'd hidden an engagement ring in her drink. Zoro leaned against the mast, smirking. "Rough night, Captain." Luffy grinned despite the bandages. "Worth it." Nami said yes. "She's marrying me and Hancock." The crew reacted in a chorus of chaos. Usopp screamed. "Wait, what?" Chopper ran in circles. "She said yes." Jem whispered to Marianne, I give it 2 weeks before she kills him. Sanji, meanwhile, sat in a dark corner, raincloud over his head. Sanji muttered miserably, it's not fair, Luffy gets to marry 2 goddesses, 2 angels. He sniffled, clutching his cigarette like a lifeline. But wait, the wedding's on Amazon Lily. Luffy nodded, sipping juice with a straw. Yep, that's the plan. Sanji suddenly burst into sparkling tears of joy, clinging to the railing. My life has purpose again. So many beautiful women. Luffy waved. Oh, and Galdino's staying with King Cobra as his liaison and bodyguard. He's gonna handle trade between us and Alabasta. He likes fancy chairs anyway. Yamato approached, cracking her knuckles. Captain, you wanted the prisoners. Behind her, 5 figures shuffled forward in seastone chains. Mr. 1, Daz Bones, stone-faced and silent. Mr. 2, Bon Clay, twirling dramatically despite the cuffs. Miss Doublefinger, glaring daggers. Mr. 4, confused and yawning. Miss Merry Christmas, grumbling like an angry mole. Yamato shoved them to their knees in front of Luffy. Luffy leaned forward, grinning wide and fanged. Welcome to my ship. I hope your suites were comfortable in our cells. Mr. 2 twirled his head, despite the chains. Sweetheart, it was fabulous. I even sang to the guards. Miss Merry Christmas snarled. You dragged us out here for what, brat? Luffy's grin only widened. Because it's time for you to make a choice. The 5 former Baroque Works agents knelt before Luffy on the deck, seastone chains clinking as the desert sun gleamed over Rainbase. Luffy leaned against the railing, casting a long shadow, his grin sharp as his fangs glinted in the light. Listen up, he said, voice carrying across the deck. Crocodile is in the hands of the Revolutionary Army, and his old territory is mine now. Alabasta belongs to the Shadow Dragon pirates. He lifted a hand, 2 fingers raised. You've got 2 choices, work for me, or die. The prisoners stiffened. Even Bon Clay, Mr. 2, stopped twirling. Mr. 1, Daz Bones, was the first to speak, his voice deep and careful. And if we work for you, what do we do? Luffy smirked. Simple. Rainbase is mine now. Galdino, Mr. 3 to you guys, is staying with King Cobra as my liaison and bodyguard. You 5. You're going to establish a black market ring under my flag. A moment of tense silence followed, until Miss Merry Christmas suddenly shouted. I join. I ain't dyin', for crocodiles screw up. Mr. 4 slowly raised his hand. Yeah, me too. Bon Clay twirled and struck a pose. Darling, you had me at black market. Cooleffinger crossed her arms, then nodded. Better to work than rot. I'll join. Finally, Mr. 1 exhaled slowly, knowing resistance was pointless against the Shadow Dragon's aura. Fine, I'll work for you. Luffy grinned and clapped his hands. Good. Now, here's the deal. One of you is going to run the casino in Rainbase. Robin, you recruited them for Crocodile, who's the best candidate? Robin placed a finger to her lips, thinking. Zala. Miss Doublefinger. She's the most cunning and reliable of the bunch. Luffy nodded and smirked. Congratulations, Zala. You're now the manager of the casino, which is being renamed the Black Dragon. Zala's eyes widened, but she gave a curt nod. Understood, Captain. Luffy paced in front of them, his shadow stretching across the deck. The rest of you will get the black market running. Antiques, luxuries, weapons, devil fruits, everything is for grabs. He stopped, his grin fading into a dark glare. But there is one rule. If any of you even think about slavery, you will die slowly. A heavy silence fell over the deck. Oh, Luffy added casually, and don't ever deal with a guy named Joker. Got it. All 5 agents swallowed hard and nodded in unison. Yes, Captain. As the 5 former Baroque Works agents stood at attention, Luffy's voice turned colder, more serious. The playful grin was gone. One more thing, he said. You won't be alone. He looked them all in the eyes. Members of the Revolutionary Army will be in contact. Keep your ears open and your mouths shut. He raised a finger. Also, some of Shanks and Whitebeard's men have access to Rainbase. Treat them with respect. A beat. Oh, and a pirate named Buggy may pass through now and then. Don't touch him. Zala raised an eyebrow, confused. Buggy. That red-nosed clown. Isn't he, kind of a joke? Luffy chuckled. He's more dangerous than you think, and he's my ally. He joined me in Orange Town, back when I could have crushed him, but didn't. Zala crossed her arms, brows furrowed. All right, Captain, but why is it we're banned from doing business with Joker? I mean, yeah, he's a SBAG slaver, but what makes him so different from the others? The deck went still. Luffy's voice dropped to a near growl. Because of her. He gestured to Hancock beside him. Hancock, silent until now, stepped forward, her expression stone cold. She slowly lifted her shirt, just enough to reveal her lower back. There was a tattoo of a bonsai tree entwined with a snake. This mark was made to cover the one I was branded with as a slave of the celestial dragons, Hancock said flatly. I was only 12 years old when I escaped. But the scar never truly faded. The crew watched in stunned silence. Hancock's voice, usually so composed and royal, turned to venom. Joker, Don Quixote da Flamingo, is tied to them. He dealt in slaves. He sold girls like me. She narrowed her eyes, and Conqueror's hockey flickered faintly around her. He is mine to kill. I will make him suffer. Luffy placed a hand gently on her shoulder. So that's why. No one here will ever deal with Doflamingo. If any of you do, you'll answer to her. The 5 ex-agents, hardened criminals though they were, nodded silently, some even visibly shaken. Zala stepped forward and bowed her head. Understood, Captain. We won't go near him. 2 weeks had passed since the Shadow Dragon pirates seized control of Rainbase and transformed its infamous casino into something new. The Black Dragon Casino. With Zala as the manager and the black market quietly blooming in the shadows, the launch event was a massive success. Nobles, merchants, pirates, and underworld dealers all came to see the casino reborn under the Shadow Dragon flag. The lights, music, and fireworks lit up the desert night. But now, the celebration was over. On the docks, Luffy, Hancock, Yamato, Kuro, and Kobe were all dragging a certain orange-haired thief down the ramp of the casino, one arm and leg each. No, not fair. Nami wailed, heels digging into the sand. I want this place. This is my dream palace. You can't just make me leave her. Luffy sighed. You named the casino. She's my baby. Nami cried, clutching a wad of profit records to her chest. Kuro adjusted his glasses. Captain, we'll need to run additional accounting checks. She's clearly embezzled half the profits. I regret nothing. Nami screamed as she was hauled onto the ship. As the Shadow Sorrow slowly pulled away from the Rainbase harbor, the people of Alabasta waved goodbye, cheering for the pirates who had saved their country, even if they ruled it now. Vivi stood at the rail, one hand on her hip, the other holding Kuru's reins. She watched as the land of Alabasta faded behind them. Kuru quacked and nudged her gently. Vivi smiled, brushing back her hair. Goodbye, my homeland. We'll be back someday. But for now, I'm ready for adventure. She looked toward the horizon. Toward Jaya, Sky Island, and whatever chaos would come next. With Rainbase behind them and the desert sun fading into ocean breeze, the Shadow Sorrow sailed into open water. As the crew resumed daily life, training resumed and tasks were divided. In the kitchen, Sanji, Mikita, and Pudding were hard at work preparing the midday meal. The scent of grilled fish and citrus curry filled the air, but Sanji's mind wasn't fully on cooking. His eyes flicked toward Pudding, who was carefully dicing vegetables with her third eye focused. Despite her usual sass, he could see the faint scar of hurt lingering from his previous pervy behavior. This time, no screw-ups. He thought grimly to himself. If I can't behave at Amazon Lily, I might not survive it. A loud snap pulled him from his thoughts. Hey, Sanji, Mikita said, snapping her fingers in front of his face. Why yes, Miki-chan. Sanji replied, almost dropping the spice jar. She gave him a suspicious squint. Luffy told us we're going to Jaya, then Sky Island, but how exactly are we getting up there? Sanji blinked. I haven't really thought about it. Just then, Kaya stepped into the kitchen, followed by Robin, both holding fruit and tea. Kaya chewed on a slice of apple and chimed in casually. Oh, I think I know how. Last time, Luffy and Hancock just flew up there. Robin smiled mysteriously and held up a weathered old book with golden trim. But this time, we're doing it the old way. She set the book on the table. The title read, Nolan the Liar. The room fell silent as everyone stared at the cover. Wait, Mikita said slowly, eyes narrowing. Isn't that the book about the guy who found the city of gold, and then got executed because no one believed him? Robin flipped it open to a marked page. We're going to use what he used to reach Sky Island, the knock upstream. Sanji, Nikita, and Pudding leaned over the page. Their faces slowly turned pale. You want to shoot our ship up into the sky? Nikita shouted. Kaya nodded, trying not to laugh. It's like a reverse geyser. Shoot straight into the clouds with insane force. Pudding's third eye twitched. That sounds suicidal. Robin smiled serenely. Not if we prepare. Sanji lit a cigarette with shaking hands. I need to make snacks for the afterlife. On the sunlit deck of the Shadow Sorrow, Tashigi was living through the worst workout of her life. She gasped for breath as Zoro, Kuro, Nami, and especially Yamato took turns training her into the ground. Sweat soaked through her shirt, and bruises were forming faster than she could count. Not fair. Tashigi whined. I didn't sign up for this kind of hell. Yamato, arms crossed, looming like a war goddess, barked at her like a drill sergeant. No complaining, rookie. I haven't even started teaching you hockey yet. Tashigi grumbled under her breath, should have just joined Smoker and Hina with the revolutionaries. Yamato's ears twitched. What was that? Tashigi's face went pale. Nothing, ma'am. A few decks above, Luffy, Hancock, Chopper, and Alvida were seated near the ship's main wing, where Chopper was checking Luffy's healing wound, completely mended thanks to his hybrid zone physiology and Chopper's top-notch care. Perfectly healed, Chopper said with a proud smile. You'll be ready to handle even the knock-upstream impact. Luffy nodded and flexed the wing lightly. Good. I'll need it. Meanwhile, Alvida stood beside Hancock, her arms crossed as she looked over the main hull of the ship. So, Alvida began, eyeing Luffy, you're really going to strip the ship down and rebuild it in atom wood. This old tub was mine once, you know. Luffy nodded solemnly. Yeah, first, we'll use it to get to Water 7. But this ship, it's like home to us. I won't let it sink without a fight. Alvida smiled faintly. Thanks, Captain. Means a lot. Hancock placed a hand on Luffy's shoulder, giving him a soft look. We'll make her stronger than ever. Chopper wagged his hoof. Just don't let Usopp or Jem redesign the figurehead again. Everyone laughed. The ocean was white and blue. Now fully healed, Luffy stood at the bow of the Shadow Sorrow, looking at the sea like a kid at a candy shop. With a wild grin, he threw off his shirt and jumped off the deck, transforming into his hybrid form midair, dark wings, shadow-scaled arms, glowing eyes, and that ever-present grin. He soared high above the ship, looping and twirling like a child on his first flight. Oh man, I missed this. He yelled, laughing like crazy. Below, the entire crew looked up and laughed. Robin chuckled softly. He looks like a happy kid. Chopper giggled. Go, Luffy. Zoro smirked. He's still an idiot, but he's our idiot. When Luffy finally landed back on the deck, he was beaming. That's when Kobe approached, his fists clenched but his expression serious. Captain, Kobe said, can we spar? Just for a bit. I've been working on a new technique. Luffy grinned. Sure, but you sure about this? Kobe nodded. Yeah, just, don't hold back. The crew gave them space as the two stepped onto the main deck. Kobe took his stance. Gum pistol. His arms stretched forward like a missile, but Luffy casually blocked it with one wing. Gear second. Kobe shouted, his body steaming slightly as his movements sped up. He launched a barrage of rapid punches. Luffy dodged effortlessly, moving between the strikes with light steps and a smirk. Not bad, Kobe. But you'll need more than that. Kobe suddenly grinned. Good. Because I'm not done. He bit his thumb, took a deep breath. Gear third. And blew into his arm, causing it to balloon to massive size, steam swirling around it. Then, he clenched his fist and coated it in armament hockey, turning it pitch black and shining. Luffy's eyes widened. Whoa, Kobe, you learned armament hockey. That's awesome. Wait, no. He suddenly realized what was happening. Kobe, don't. But it was too late. Kobe leapt high into the air, his massive hockey-covered fist overhead. Gum, elephant gun. Luffy's mind raced. If I dodge, that thing's going to sink the ship. Without hesitating, he opened his mouth and yelled. Shadow burst. A massive blast of purple flame exploded from Luffy's mouth, engulfing Kobe midair in shadowy energy. The impact stopped him cold, knocking him back and cushioning his fall. Kobe crashed onto the deck, steaming and dazed. Luffy rushed over. Kobe, you okay? That was close, you almost sank the ship. Kobe, barely conscious, gave a weak thumbs up and smiled. Sorry, Captain. The crew stared in stunned silence. Then Alvida muttered, that kid's either going to be a hero, or a hazard. Zoro shrugged. Both. Hancock gently touched Luffy's arm. He's growing. Just like you once did. Luffy looked at his cabin boy, smiled proudly, and laughed. Atta boy, Kobe. But next time, aim for the sky, not the ship. That night, the entire Shadow Dragon crew gathered in the main dining hall, filling the long tables with food, drinks, and laughter. At the head of the table sat Luffy, flanked by Hancock on his right and Nami on his left. Around them were Kobe, Alvida, Yamato, Zoro, Usopp, Kaya, Kuro, Sanji, Mikita, Gem, Marianne, Vivi, Robin, Tasha G, Chopper, and Pudding, all enjoying the rare moment of peace. Luffy, cheeks full of meat, suddenly stood up and clapped his hands. All right, listen up, everyone. The room quieted down. Luffy grinned. Some of you already know this, Nami and Hancock especially, but we're heading to Skypia. Several crew members gasped. Luffy said proudly, we're going there to grab the gold Hancock and I left behind when we defeated Enel over a year ago. He pointed dramatically across the table. And when we get there, you'll see a giant bell made of pure gold. He turned to Nami, narrowing his eyes. But Nami, the bell is off limits. Nami puffed her cheeks in mock protest. Not fair. Luffy continued, motioning to Tashigi and Vivi. We also need to talk about our new arrivals. He gestured toward the two women, who sat at opposite ends of the table. Tashigi and Vivi will have official roles. I already talked it over with Yamato, Hancock, Nami, and Kuro. He paused, rubbing his chin. Well, Nami hesitated. Nami rolled her eyes. Only because I knew this was coming. Luffy pointed at Tashigi. Tashigi, you're our assistant quartermaster. Your first job is making sure Zoro doesn't get lost in the supply room again. Zoro slammed his fist on the table. Hey, that was one time. Usopp raised a hand. We were down there 2 days ago because you hadn't been seen in a day. Zoro grumbled, it's a confusing layout. Gem blinked. It's literally a straight hallway with shelves. The whole crew burst out laughing, and even Zoro couldn't help but smirk. Luffy then looked at Vivi. And Vivi, you're in charge of all our treasure. Nami bolted upright. I wanted that job. Hancock nodded. Yes, and if you had it, all our finances would vanish into boutique stores and swimsuit shops. Nami narrowed her eyes. Low blow. Vivi gave a small smile and nodded. I accept. I'll keep it organized. She pulled out a small notebook. Oh, that reminds me, how much money do we actually have, so I can properly catalog? Luffy grinned. We're broke. Silence. Nami blinked. What? Luffy held up his hands. Hey, the casino costs money to run. The opening party covered the rebuild, and the rest of the profits I sent to our guys in Alabasta to fund the start of the black market operation. Nami fell face first onto the floor, twitching. We have a casino, a black market, and we're poor. Luffy scratched his head. Guess so. A shadow covered Nami's slumped form as she quietly wept. Richie the lion walked over and gently handed her a tissue with his paw. As the laughter over Nami's financial meltdown faded and she quietly sobbed into a tissue from Richie, Luffy leaned back and grinned. Ah, don't be such a crybaby, Nami. We're out at sea, you're getting married to me and Hancock, and we're not in a hurry, right? He stretched, satisfied. Speaking of which, Sanji. That dinner was fantastic. Sanji bowed slightly. Thanks, Captain. But all credit goes to Mickey-chan and Pudding-chan, we've been doing our best. Then, Sanji froze. The color drained from his face. But, Luffy, we have a problem. Luffy raised an eyebrow. What kind of problem? Sanji shakily turned to Mikita and grabbed her shoulders. Mickey-chan, why you tell him? Mikita glared. Oh, no you don't. She shoved Sanji back. Pudding, you tell him. Pudding screeched, not fair. You both tell. Fine. She stood up, face red, voice shaking. We're almost out of food. Then immediately covered her mouth, realizing what she'd just shouted. The room went dead silent. Luffy's eyes went wide. What? He screamed. Sanji slowly peeked from behind the door, holding a clipboard like a shield. We're still okay on vegetables, but we're low on meat, wine, and basic ingredients. Pudding added nervously, I can't even bake cakes without sugar. There was a faint ping of metal. Hancock stood up so fast her chair fell backward. What? No desserts? She raised a fist glowing with Conqueror's hockey. This is war. Luffy jumped to his feet, pointing toward the helm. Change of plans. Everyone to your positions. Kobe stumbled. Sea Captain. But, what about? Luffy grabbed him dramatically. Kobe, if you have to blow on the sail with your mouth, do it. Full speed to Jaya and Skypia. He turned to the entire crew, eyes blazing with pure panic. This is a food emergency. That's an order. As the crew scrambled, sails unfurling and ropes flying, Nami blinked, still half buried under the black cloth of her financial mourning. She slowly stood up, wiped her eyes, and pointed at Luffy with fire in her eyes. If I don't get my gold and food, someone's gonna get mauled. Luffy just laughed. Bring it on, Nami. The shadow sorrow sliced through the sea breeze as the jungle-cloaked island of Jaya came into view. A seedy port town sprawled along the coastline, its crooked buildings, shady alleys, and loud taverns promising rum, violence, and rumors. As they approached the docks, Robin raised her binoculars to the horizon. There it is. Flying above the largest building in the port, a bright, familiar flag flapped in the salty wind. The Jolly Roger of Don Quixote Doflamingo. Luffy's eyes narrowed. TCH, Joker's territory. Hancock, standing at his side, gave a soft but menacing smile. Should we pay him a visit? Nami crossed her arms, her voice ice. We should at least be polite to our black market competitor and favorite SBAG slaver. Luffy cracked his knuckles. All right. Me, Hancock, Nami, Zoro, Yamato, Vivi, Richie, and Robin will go ashore. Just a friendly drink, for now. Vivi, checking her purse, frowned. We don't even have money for a drink, remember? Nami grinned sweetly, too sweetly. Oh, don't worry. I have some savings stashed away. She turned to Luffy and purred, I could pay for a round, dear. Luffy's grin lit up like a sunrise. He grabbed her, hugged her tight, and kissed her cheek. That's why I love you, Nami. Nami smiled back, then flipped her coin pouch with a smug smirk. But of course, you all have to repay me. She held up 3 fingers. With 300% interest. Luffy, Zoro, Yamato, Vivi, Robin, and even Richie the lion, all shouted in perfect sync. Not fair. The Shadow Dragon pirates began lowering the gangplank as locals and shady figures eyed their ship with growing curiosity. The crew was about to enter a lion's den of danger, rumors, and maybe a little gold. And Joker's shadow loomed close. The streets of Mocktown were as wild and lawless as ever, filled with pirates, bounty hunters, and smugglers whispering about treasure, devil fruits, and who might die next. The Shadow Dragon pirates stepped off the dock and into the largest tavern in the port. Luffy, Hancock, Nami, Yamato, Zoro, Vivi, Robin, and Richie entered like a storm cloud of power. The bar fell silent for a moment as dozens of eyes turned toward them, some recognizing the infamous trio of Shadow Dragon, Snake Princess, and Oni Princess. Then the noise resumed, though now with hushed whispers. A loud, obnoxious voice rang out from the bar. Oi oi oi, look at these wannabe pirates walkin' in like they own the place. Hyena, laughing as he leaned against the bar with his legs wide and ego even wider. Sit down, nobodies. This place belongs to real pirates. The crew didn't even look at him. They walked past without a word and took a booth toward the back. Bellamy was visibly offended but smart enough not to push it, yet. As they settled in, Luffy's eyes drifted around lazily, until they locked on something that froze him mid-blink. He stared for a second, blinked again, then leaned forward. He wasn't hallucinating. He nudged Hancock and Yamato. Hey, look, 3 seats behind us. They turned casually, and their expressions darkened with recognition. Sitting at a table behind them, laughing with a group of nobodies, was a massive man in a ragged coat, a wide grin of missing teeth, and a voice like gravel. Marshal D. Teach. Blackbeard. Yamato cracked her knuckles. Should we say hello? Hancock's smile was cold, her voice like ice. Or should we just gift wrap him and send him to Whitebeard? Zoro, Nami, Robin, and Vivi all blinked in confusion. Luffy leaned forward and said quietly, "That fat guy back there is Blackbeard, the one Ace is hunting." The table tensed. Luffy added with a smirk, "He probably just ate the yummy yummy no mi a short time ago, doesn't look like he's figured out how to control it yet." He looked at Hancock and Yamato, eyes gleaming. "Ladies, let's go say hi." Inside the smoky tavern, Marshal D. Teach, better known as Blackbeard, sat at a round table surrounded by his low-rank lackeys, scarfing down cherry pie after cherry pie with crumbs all over his beard. He laughed loud and obnoxiously. "Ziahaha, this place has the best pies in the Grand Line." But his laughter stopped cold when a hand tapped his shoulder. A cold voice followed. Well, looks like I just found a coward." Teach turned slowly, the color draining from his face as he recognized the voice. H. Hancock. There she was, tall, elegant, deadly. Boa Hancock, eyes sharp and cold. Before he could say another word, a second voice added with a grin. "She's not alone, Teach I." Yamato stepped up beside Hancock, her massive kanabo resting on her shoulder, fangs showing in a hungry smile. Teach started to sweat. What are you two doing here? And no, wait, this isn't good." Suddenly, a black sword slid across his shoulder from behind. He spun around, and there stood his worst nightmare. Monkey D. Luffy, cloaked in shadow, hybrid wings half spread, his eyes glowing with predatory glee. "Hi, fat ass." And then, boom, Luffy punched him square in the jaw, sending Teach crashing into his crew, flipping over a table and knocking 3 of them unconscious. Teach coughed, wheezing, trying to rise. I'll use my. But the moment his hand began to glow with the yummy yummy no mi's black energy. Luffy stepped forward, slamming his foot, coated in armament haki, onto Teach's arm. "Crack. Try again," Luffy said coldly. Meanwhile, Hancock and Yamato calmly walked past the chaos, staring down Teach's remaining lackeys. Hancock crossed her arms. "Anyone moves, I turn you into stone." Yamato smiled, resting her club over her shoulder. "Please resist. I'm bored." Not a single man dared move. Back at Teach's side, Luffy crouched beside the groaning pirate. He looked him in the eyes. "Now what to do with you?" He tilted his head. "Shame you didn't have time to train that fruit, Teach I." He pressed harder on his arm, shadow energy flickering under his heel. "Because right now, you're just a loudmouth with a new toy. And you're not ready to play with us." As Teach groaned on the floor, Luffy stood over him, his face hard and cold. "What should I do with you, Teach?" he said softly, almost whispering. "I could gift wrap you and send you to the old man." He took a step forward, shadow energy rippling around his legs. "Or I could kill you slowly. Painfully. Because Thatch was my friend, you fat bastard." Without hesitation, Luffy raised his leg, coated in shining black armament haki, and kicked Teach straight in the ribs, launching him into the stone wall with a boom that cracked the plaster. Teach hit the ground, twitching and coughing blood. Luffy began walking toward him, but was interrupted by a loud, mocking voice behind him. "Oi, that's enough." A blonde-haired pirate with a spring in his step stepped between Luffy and Teach, arms spread dramatically. "This is my island, punk. You and those pretty little girls know who you're dealing with. He struck a pose, puffing his chest out. "Bellamy the hyena. Bounty. 55 million berry." The bar went dead silent. Luffy didn't stop walking. He just looked at Bellamy with pure disgust. "Get out of my way, weakling. Or I'll shove you so far up your boyfriend Doflamingo's ass, they'll hang your bounty poster in a proctology clinic." He tilted his head and grinned with malice. "We all know you're his butt boy. Why else would he give you his Jolly Roger to use?" Bellamy clenched his fists and snarled. "You wanna die, punk? Who even or why?" "Bellamy, move." One of his own men suddenly screamed from across the bar, pale as a ghost. "Don't touch him. That's the Shadow Dragon. That's Monkey D. Luffy." The entire tavern went dead quiet again. Mugs stopped midair. Dice dropped to the floor. A fork clattered. "Bounty. 850 million berry." Bellamy froze, sweat forming instantly on his brow. He slowly turned toward Luffy, whose eyes were glowing faintly red, shadows curling off his shoulders like smoke. Behind him, Hancock and Yamato were cracking their knuckles. Luffy leaned in, voice low and dangerous. "Wanna repeat that, Bellamy? Or do you wanna run home and cry into Daffy's bed sheets?" Despite his crewmates' warning and the growing silence around him, Bellamy the hyena grinned stupidly. "PFF'd, 850 million. Please. That guy's just overhyped." He bounced back, activating his spring fruit. His legs coiled, body twisting like a spring-loaded cannonball. Spring hopper. Bellamy began to ricochet around the tavern, crashing off walls, the ceiling, and pillars with high-speed velocity, until he came soaring toward Luffy, cocking his fist back for a devastating punch. "You're dead, Shadow Dragon." Wham! As soon as Bellamy stopped bouncing and launched forward, Luffy caught his punch midair with one hand. The tavern gasped. What? Luffy didn't even flinch. With his free arm, Luffy cocked back a hockey-coated fist and growled. "You had your shot." Crack! Luffy punched Bellamy so hard across the face, the hyena's body twisted midair, his jaw shattered, and he went flying across the tavern in a straight line, crashing into a stone column and collapsing in a heap. Unmoving. He wasn't just unconscious, he was flatlined, probably dealing with a shattered skull, a dislocated neck, and brain damage, if he didn't already have it from sheer stupidity. Luffy stood over the broken hyena, dusting off his hands. "Should have bounced your dumbass back to your master, clown." He turned around, eyes narrowing. But the corner where Teach had crashed earlier was now empty. The bar door was swinging slightly. Robin, arms folded, sighed. "They're gone." Zoro clicked his tongue. Cowards slipped away during the chaos. Yamato cracked her knuckles. "Smart, I was just about to start." Luffy growled. "Coward. He's not ready yet, but one day, I'll deal with him properly." Nami smirked. "Well, that was an eventful drink." Vivi looked around. "Are we still paying for anything?" Nami shrugged. "Not anymore." Luffy was pissed. Not because Bellamy was an idiot, that was expected. But because Teach had escaped. And Luffy really wanted to make an example of him. As the dust settled in the tavern, Luffy turned to Vivi, leaned down, and whispered something in her ear. She blinked. "Are you sure?" Luffy nodded. 100%. Vivi smiled, saluted, and walked out of the tavern to deliver his orders to the rest of the crew at the ship. Luffy turned back toward the bar, a broken table, towering above the stunned crowd of pirates, bounty hunters, and thugs. He raised his voice, clear and cold. "Citizens of Mock Town, and fellow pirates." He gestured to the crumpled, bleeding body of Bellamy, unconscious and twitching on the floor. "Because this idiot decided to stop me from catching my prey, now, all of you are going to pay the price." The crowd froze. Every eye was on Luffy. He grinned darkly. "Me and my crew are going to rob this place blind. Every vault, every safe, every pocket." He raised a hand. "Now, you can hand over all your valuables peacefully, or we can do it the hard way." "Oh no you don't." A roar erupted from the back as a burly man with wild hair and rage-filled eyes burst forward. It was Sarkis, Bellamy's right-hand man. He pulled out two wicked kukri blades and charged straight at Luffy. "I'll carve you up, you monster." But before he got within striking range, a shadow dropped in front of him. It wasn't Luffy. It was Nami. Her body shifted in a smooth, terrifying blur as she transformed into her Black Panther hybrid form, muscular, graceful, and deadly. Before Sarkis could even react, slash! One clean swipe of her claw tore straight through his chest. Blood burst into the air like a fountain. He fell to the ground, dead before he hit it. Gasps filled the tavern. Chairs toppled. Glass shattered. Pirates and guests were now frozen with fear. Nami flicked the blood from her claws, then brought one to her lips. She licked it slowly and smiled. "Now, empty your pockets." The entire tavern erupted into chaos as pirates scrambled to toss jewelry, wallets, gold coins, and weapons onto the ground. Some fell to their knees. Others begged. A few tried to run, only to be stopped by Zoro, Yamato, or Robin's arms sprouting from the walls. As Luffy, Hancock, Nami, Yamato, Zoro, Vivi, Robin, and Richie stepped out of the tavern, they were greeted by beautiful chaos. The streets of Mock Town were in full panic mode as the rest of the Shadow Dragon pirates went to work. Kobe and Jem chased down fleeing pirates with emptying coin purses. Sanji, Nikita, and Pudding were rolling barrels of food and ingredients onto carts. Kaya and Tashigi were hauling jewelry and watches. Zoro and Alvida were dragging crates of wine and gunpowder like it was a shopping trip. Above them all, Usopp stood proudly, holding something massive over his head. Don Quixote Doflamingo's pirate flag, torn straight from the building. "Captain," Usopp shouted, "souvenir from your favorite clown." Luffy smirked, walked forward, and looked around. The terrified citizens and pirates of Mock Town were watching from alleyways, rooftops, and behind barrels. Many were pleading, "Please, that's all I have. Take it, just don't kill us. Can I at least keep my boots?" Luffy raised one hand and bowed mockingly. "Thanks, everyone, for your generous donations." He then turned to Daffy's flag, ripped it in half, stuffed it with gunpowder, and grabbed a nearby oil lantern. With a dramatic flick of his wrist, he lit the flag on fire. The flaming symbol of Doflamingo's crew burned bright, ashes rising into the air. Luffy stepped back, shifted into his hybrid form, wings unfurling in black flame, and declared for all to hear. "Tell the government dog, the shadow dragon was here." As smoke curled into the sky, the crew gathered at the town center, surrounded by stolen loot. Luffy clapped his hands. "All right, what's the haul? What did we get?" Vivi, still a bit hesitant about the whole mass robbery thing, held up her notebook. "We gathered about 4 million berry, over 100 kilograms of meat, thanks to Makita, Sanji, and Pudding." "Yes," Luffy cheered. 50 kilos of sugar, gunpowder, over 100 watches, enough alcohol to drown you and Zoro together." "Challenge accepted," Zoro muttered. "And a full collection of women's fashion from local stores." Luffy raised an eyebrow and looked over at Kaya, Alvida, Makita, Tashigi, Marianne, and Vivi, who all whistled innocently. He smirked. "You're doing." Before they could respond, Nami and Hancock stepped in, arms full of handbags and high-end boots. "Hey," Nami growled. "Half of those clothes are ours." Hancock nodded coldly. "We saw them first." Luffy laughed. "Well, guess we're ready for the sky." With Mock Town left in financial ruins, the Shadow Sorrow sailed around the other side of Jaya, its sails full of wind and its decks stacked with stolen riches. Soon, the lush green of the jungle thinned out into a rocky coastline, where a familiar treehouse lab overlooked the sea. As they docked, a deep voice rang out. "Luffy, Hancock, that you two again?" Standing atop the cliff, waving enthusiastically, was none other than Mont Blanc Cricket, shirtless as ever, with his two monkey brothers, Masira and Shuju, at his side, both hooting in delight. Luffy grinned wide and leapt off the ship, Hancock floating down beside him like royalty. "Cricket, still diving for lost cities?" Cricket laughed. "Still blowing them up for fun, yeah." The trio greeted each other like old friends, fist bumps, hugs, and back pats all around. "So, you two heading back to Sky Island?" Cricket asked, eyeing the massive ship behind them. "Yeah," Luffy nodded. "This time we're going knock upstream style. I can't lift the ship anymore with the weight, so we're doing it the old-fashioned way." Cricket gave a proud nod. "Now that's the pirate spirit." Luffy turned and began introducing the crew one by one. "This is Nami, Robin, Zoro, Vivi, Yamato, Kuro, Kaya, Makita, Pudding, Marianne, Tashigi, Usopp, Sanji, Gem, Kobe, Alvida, Chopper, and the lion is Richie. Don't worry, he only bites marines." Masira gave a double thumbs up. "Nice crew." Shuju yelled into a megaphone for no reason. Cricket gestured toward the jungle. "All right, I'll help prep your ship for the knock upstream, but there's one thing I need you lot to do in the meantime, find a south bird. Without it, you'll never chart the path in time." Luffy grinned wickedly, eyes lighting up. "A challenge, huh?" He turned toward the crew and shouted at the top of his lungs. "All right everyone. First one to catch a south bird gets 40% of the treasure we stole in Mock Town." The crew gasped. Gold and jewels suddenly had wings. Nami's eyes turned into belly symbols instantly. She vaulted onto Richie's back and pointed toward the jungle. "Richie, we've got a bird to catch, and I want all those clothes and shoes for myself." Richie roared and bolted into the trees. And just like that, the south bird hunt began, with the crew charging into the jungle, some for glory, some for riches, and others, like Sanji, for love. Meanwhile, Cricket turned to Hancock, chuckling. "You sure this is a good idea?" Hancock smiled calmly. "With this crew, Chaos is part of the charm. While the rest of the Shadow Dragon pirates were busy tearing through the jungle in pursuit of a very unlucky south bird, and casually destroying half the island in the process, 3 stayed behind at the cliffside base. Luffy, Hancock, and Robin. Robin was seated cross-legged on a flat stone, carefully inspecting a collection of golden artifacts laid out before her. Delicately preserved relics dredged up from the seabed by Mont Blanc cricket, and others retrieved by Luffy and Hancock during their first trip to Skypia. One of the pieces was a small golden plate etched with sky scripts and Shandoran carvings. These symbols are pre-Void era. Incredible, Robin whispered, brushing her fingers lightly over the engravings. Luffy grinned and leaned back with his hands behind his head. That's nothing, Robin. Just wait until you see Shandora for real. That place is like a scholar's dream library made of gold. For the first time in a while, Robin's eyes sparkled with genuine excitement. You're serious? Completely, Hancock added, kneeling beside her and carefully handing her a stone slab carved with ancient writing. And after Skypia, when we go to Amazon Lily for the wedding, you'll be welcome to study the ruins there, too. Robin raised a brow, curious. They'd let an outsider do that. Hancock smiled calmly. My sister is the current empress. I can guarantee permission. Cricket blinked in surprise, setting down a crate of gear nearby. Hold up. You're the older sister of Boa Sandersonia, the warlord. Hancock laughed softly. Oh, please. She doesn't take it seriously. The only reason she even has that title is because Garp pushed for it. She waved a hand. That old nutcase originally tried to recruit me or Luffy. But when I refused, he picked my little sister instead. She was the perfect candidate. Strong enough to scare off enemies, but not strong enough to challenge the world government. Hancock's tone turned cold. Still, thanks to that title, Amazon Lily is safe. For now. Robin gently placed the golden tablet aside. Then let's make sure it stays that way. As the sun began to dip low over Jaya's jungle canopy, casting golden light over the cliffside base, the quiet between the 3 sitting pirates was broken by a calm, curious voice. Robin looked up from the golden relics. Luffy. Hancock. May I ask you something? Luffy tilted his head. Sure, what's up? Robin met their eyes, serene as ever. When are you going to tell Kobe what his devil fruit really is? Both Luffy and Hancock froze, their casual expressions dropping into stunned silence. Wah, Luffy stammered. How did you, when? Robin gave a faint smile and raised one hand. Several flower petals spun into ears that reached toward the far wall. I used my powers earlier. I heard you two whispering. Hancock groaned and dramatically threw her hands up. It's not nice to eavesdrop, Nico Robin. Robin sipped her tea. And it's not nice to keep secrets from your crewmates. Cricket, nearby, blinked. Wait, hold on. What's this about Kobe's fruit? Hancock sighed and sat properly, folding her hands in her lap. Well, since you already know, and Cricket's here, we might as well tell you. Luffy nodded. Yeah, no point hiding it now. He looked toward the jungle where Kobe was likely getting lost again. Kobe ate the Hito no Mi model, Nika the sun god. Robin's eyes widened. You gave him a mythical zone, the sun god fruit. Hancock answered. We did, but we told him it was the gum fruit. He still thinks it's that. Robin stared. Why? Luffy stood and cracked his knuckles, watching the horizon. Because the Nika fruit is dangerous. Not just power-wise, but what it means. It's tied to Joy Boy, to freedom, to legacy. He turned to Robin, eyes serious. If Kobe found out too soon, he might get cocky. Or worse, the world government might catch wind and come after him early. Robin thought quietly for a moment, then slowly nodded. That makes sense. He's growing fast, but he's still fragile. We're training him, Hancock added. Carefully. Secretly. So when the time comes, he'll awaken it when he's ready, not just because he thinks he should. Robin looked at them both with new understanding. I see. Then I promise. She touched the center of her chest, solemn. I'll keep your secret, until Kobe is ready to learn the truth. Cricket rubbed his neck. Damn, you people are wild. Luffy just smirked. You've got no idea. As the sun began to dip lower on the far side of Jaya, the Shadow Dragon pirates returned to Cricket's base one by one. Sizzling, smoldering, scratched, defeated. Trailing at the front of the group, Kaya proudly carried the squawking, feather-ruffled south bird in her arms. Beside her walked Kobe, the only crew member who didn't look like he had been barbecued in a storm cloud. Everyone else. Zoro's hair was smoking. Sanji's eyebrows were curled tighter than usual. Jem was twitching. Pudding's dress was halfway burned. Chopper looked like he got hit by a thunderbolt. Twice. Richie the lion was limping, whimpering pitifully with a fried mane. And then there was Nami, covered in scratches, singed clothes, and utterly furious. She stormed forward, shrieking. Not fair. I had the bird. I was winning. Then Rubber Boy grabbed me from behind, and when I broke free, Kaya shocked me. She pointed accusingly at Kobe and Kaya. You two betrayed me. I demand a rematch. Kobe, looking sheepish but proud, our head. Sorry, Nami. I teamed up with Kaya so you wouldn't win. Kaya, holding the bird triumphantly, smiled sweetly. What can I say? It was a smart deal. The rest of the crew, twitching and recovering from their shock therapy, all groaned in unison. Serves you right, Nami. Zoro, arms crossed and hair still frizzed, glared at Kaya. But why'd you shock us too? We weren't even in your way. Kaya made a wide-eyed, innocent face, blinking sweetly. Oops, guess I went overboard. Yamato, grinning and clapping, stepped forward. Well, I guess that means you win, Kaya. Good job. Kaya beamed and hugged the south bird tightly. It was fun. Nami collapsed onto the grass, still twitching, smoke coming off her boots. I hate everything. Richie whimpered. Mary Ann handed him a cold wet towel. With the bird secured and the crew sufficiently humiliated, it was finally time to prepare for the knock upstream. In the legendary city of Shandora that waited above. The early morning sun barely peeked over the horizon when the Shadow Sorrow set sail from the coast of Jaya, guided by the bizarrely accurate head bobbing of the south bird perched on Kaya's shoulder. All preparations were complete. The wind was stiff. The sky above darkened ominously. The sea beneath began to rumble. Nami, still slightly singed and sulking from yesterday's betrayal, stood at the helm beside Alvida, who had taken over part of the navigation during stormier parts of the voyage. Nami muttered, I swear, if that bird is wrong, I'm plucking it. Suddenly, a massive roar echoed through the ocean. Whoosh! The knock upstream erupted like a furious geyser, tearing through the sea with titanic force. That's it! Shouted Luffy, grinning wildly as the ship surged toward the rising pillar of water. Hold on, everyone! Alvida yelled. The ride up was chaos. Jem screamed like a baby. Kobe clung to the railings for dear life, sobbing, this isn't normal sailing. Kuro was cursing every god he knew. Tashigi looked like she was going to hurl. But up front, Luffy, in his hybrid form, laughed joyously. Hancock's hair whipped in the wind as she howled in glee. Zoro and Yamato were grinning like lunatics, holding their weapons aloft. Nami, whined in her face, finally cracked a smile. Vivi, clutching Kuru, screamed in excitement, this is amazing. The ship burst through the clouds, surrounded by mist and sunlight. And then, silence. Above them stood a giant white cloud road and a floating gate built into the sky itself. Towering over it was a mysterious old woman, her long white robes flowing like feathers in the wind. She stood at the edge of Heaven's Gate, looking directly at the ship. Her eyes widened. Her lips curled into a reverent smile. The dragon god and the serpent goddess, return. She bowed. Welcome back, Shadow Dragon Luffy, and Snake Goddess Hancock. The heavens have awaited you. She raised her hand, and the clouds shifted, parting to create a path upward. The old woman whispered, may the Sky Islands embrace you once more. The Shadow Sorrow rose even higher, sailing into the realm of gods and myths. As the Shadow Sorrow broke through the final layer of clouds, the crew gasped. Laid before them was Angel Island, a floating paradise bathed in golden sunlight, dotted with snow-white cloud buildings, fruit trees growing from coral-like roots, and wide walkways of soft, compacted cloud. The moment the ship docked, the Sky People, both Skypians and Shandians, bowed in reverence. Luffy and Hancock both sighed. Yeah, this again, Luffy muttered. Robin raised a brow. What exactly is going on? Hancock explained, brushing a lock of hair behind her ear. After we defeated Enel, both the Skypians and Shandians started calling us divine figures. Luffy chuckled. They call me the dragon god. And me the snake goddess, Hancock added with mild embarrassment. We tried to tell them we weren't gods, she said, looking away. Yeah right, Luffy cut in with a teasing grin. This coming from the woman who said, and I quote, the snake goddess demands sweets, silk dresses, and the finest perfumes. Hancock turned red. Oh, and you weren't the one who said, the dragon god demands meat and rum in endless supply. The crew burst into laughter. Usopp wheezed. So that's why the town is built around a meat market and a bakery. Even Robin chuckled. How blasphemously practical. Luffy raised his arms and shouted, all right. Time for the surprise. He and Hancock tore off their coats to reveal custom swimwear, Luffy in cloud-patterned trunks, Hancock in a breathtaking bikini with sky snake motifs. They sprinted toward the cloud sea, and dived in. Splash. Instead of sinking or freezing up, they floated effortlessly on the white, fluffy water. Luffy popped his head up, grinning wide. This water is made of cloud. It's not salty, devil fruit users can swim here. Silence. Then chaos. Jem ripped off his shirt and cannonballed in. Kobe shouted, finally, and dove like a dolphin. Yamato ripped her top and jumped in midair form. Kaya, Makita, and Pudding squealed and raced to change. Nami had already changed, grabbed her floaty, and jumped with a gleeful, mine. Even Robin, who was rarely excited, let a small smile show and calmly walked into the cloud sea. The remaining crew just stared as half the ship emptied into the sea. Zoro blinked. Guess I'll guard the boat. Sanji collapsed on the dock, nose bleeding at the sight of bikinis everywhere. Floating on the cloud sea, Nami grinned and looked up at Luffy. Okay, I admit, this place is better than the casino. Hancock smirked. See, told you Skypia was worth it. Luffy laughed, and you all thought I was joking about cloud water. Note, I know Luffy can't swim on the clouds in the original, but that's just dumb. Devil fruit users only sink in sea water, so for this story let's have them swim on clouds, okay? After an hour of swimming, cloud games, and Nami almost drowning Richie in floaty wars, the crew dried off, relaxed, and walked into the center of Angel Island. A group of familiar faces greeted them at the Grand Plaza, led by Viper, arms crossed but smirking. Lackey, puffing on a cigar and waving. Canis, smiling kindly. Isa, now a bit taller, more mature, with a tiny white bird on her shoulder. And finally, Gonfall atop his bird horse, Pierre. As soon as Luffy saw them, he grinned like a kid and yelled. Viper, Lackey, Canis, Isa, oh, Gonfall and the bird horse guy. Everyone faceplanted anime style. Pierre neighed proudly. Gonfall chuckled. It's good to see you again, Dragon God and Snake Goddess. Luffy introduced each member of his expanded crew, proudly naming off new and old members. When Canis and Lackey greeted them with bows, Sanji's eyes turned into hearts. Angels. Real. Beautiful. Angels. He cried, twirling into the air. He was about to sprint toward them with sparkles trailing behind him when, wham! Clang! A cast iron skillet nailed him straight in the face. Sanji collapsed like a paper doll. Pudding, holding the weapon of justice, fumed. How many frying pans do we have to sacrifice for your pervy soul? Makita, arms crossed, added, that was the last undented one. Gonfall leaned to Hancock. Are they always like this? Hancock just nodded with a smile. Worse. As everyone calmed down, Luffy climbed a cloud step and raised both arms. All right, listen up, everyone. The crew quieted, waiting. Luffy grinned wide. We'll be staying on Skypia for 1 week. The crew gasped, then cheered. 4 days of do what you want, relax, explore, swim, shop, whatever. The girls, especially Nami, Robin, Vivi, and Kaya, jumped for joy. Then 3 days of training. He continued, now serious. We're gonna be stronger than ever before. Yamato cracked her knuckles with a wide grin. Oh yeah. Zoro grinned. Finally. Kobe looked nervous. Does this include? Yes. Yamato cracked her neck and pointed at him. You're up first, rookie. Kobe fat out laughing. For half the week, Skypia was paradise. The Shadow Dragon pirates made the floating sea their playground, their training ground, and, thanks to Nami, even their shopping mall. It all started when Canis and Lucky wheeled out the familiar waver, beaming with pride. Want to give it another go? Canis grinned. Luffy and Hancock exchanged nervous glances. Luffy chuckled. You remember last time? Hancock groaned. You mean your crash? I hit the house because you yelled, go faster. 10 minutes later, Nami and Vivi zoomed by them, graceful, fast, and flawless. Woohoo! This is amazing, Nami screamed joyfully, doing a drift. Try and keep up, boys. Vivi laughed. Luffy and Hancock stared with jaws dropped, then mumbled in unison. Not fair. Usopp trained under Viper, learning sniper tricks and guerrilla tactics. Viper was gruff but impressed. You're not bad, for a long-nosed weirdo. Sanji, Pudding, and Makita were introduced to sky fish, soft, floaty, and faintly glowing. They cooked up sky sashimi, grilled skyfin, and angel fish tempura. Everyone agreed, heaven never tasted so good. Tashigi's hockey training began in earnest. Yamato supervised like a tyrant drill sergeant. Zoro just enjoyed watching Tashigi suffer. Hey, don't peek during observation. Yamato will swing. Yamato, holding her massive kanabo, say, oops, one more time, rookie. The highlight for Robin was discovering the golden city of Shandora. With Kobe, Gem, and Karu helping carry artifacts and sketch murals, she spent 4 entire days cataloging history. She even discovered a broken poneglyph shard, not one with Rio poneglyph text, but an old warning about the celestial dragons. Eventually, Luffy, Hancock, Robin, Viper, Yamato, and the rest reached the Golden Bell, still standing tall, majestic, and untouched since Enel's defeat. As they approached, a massive shadow loomed from above. Nola, the colossal sky serpent, slithered down with joy. Shy girl, long time no see, Luffy called out, laughing. Nola bobbed her head in excitement, coiling around the bell protectively. Then it happened. Nami turned the corner, saw the bell, and froze. She dropped her sunglasses. She dropped her sky drink. She dropped her brain. That's a mountain-sized bell, made of pure gold. Her eyes turned into berry symbols, and she lunged. Luff why. Let me just melt a corner. A little chunk. It's my one piece. I deserve this. Hancock, Viper, Yamato, and Luffy had to tackle her, cuff her in sea stone, wrap her in steel chains. Still deal with her screaming. Please. Just a slice. A sliver. A wedding present. A ring made from the bell. Anything. Vivi facepalmed. Robin laughed quietly, and she called me the history nut. Beneath the shimmering glow of the sun and the silent watch of Nola, Robin stood before the poneglyph carved into the base of the golden bell. Her fingers lightly traced the ancient letters. Her voice echoed across the clouds. It speaks of an ancient weapon, Poseidon, said to command the Sea Kings. The crew went silent, until both Luffy and Hancock burst into laughter. Robin blinked. You're laughing. Luffy grinned and scratched the back of his head. Well, it's not like it's a secret to us. Hancock smirked, arms folded. We already know who Poseidon is. Robin's jaw dropped. You do. Luffy nodded. Yeah, we found out when we visited Fishman Island during our time with Shanks' crew. Hancock chimed in, her tone casual. Poseidon is Shirahoshi, the mermaid princess. Robin nearly choked on air. What? She's a living weapon. Hancock nodded again. She summoned Sea Kings once, by accident. Poor thing doesn't even realize her own power. Usopp dropped his snack. Zoro scratched his head. Wait, the cute crybaby one. Luffy chuckled. Imagine the look on the faces of those 5 celestial dipshits when they find out that one of the ancient weapons is a giant, sobbing, fish girl. Even Robin chuckled at that. The irony is poetic. Wanting to lighten the mood and humor his soon-to-be wife, Luffy grinned and called over to Nola. Hey, shy girl, open up. Nola tilted her massive head, blinked twice, then opened her enormous mouth. The crew gasped. Inside was mountains of gold, shimmering in the light like a literal dragon's hoard. We hid the gold here after beating Enel, Luffy explained. No one would dare check inside a 200-foot sky snake. Nami took one cautious step forward. Then another. Her mouth hung open. Her eyes glowed golden. Then she sprinted straight toward Nola's mouth and leapt inside like a kid diving into a ball pit. I'm rich. I'm finally rich. From inside echoed. This is the best wedding gift ever. The crew burst out laughing. Even Zoro cracked a smile. As they prepped the Shadow Sorrow to depart, they were met by Isa, arms folded, frowning hard. I wanna go with you, she said. Luffy kneeled down. You're strong, Isa. But not yet. Hancock smiled gently. One day, when you're older, and when you're ready. Viper patted her head. For now, protect your home. You're still a kid. Isa looked down. Okay. But as they turned away, a glint of mischief shone in her eyes. Robin, who caught it, leaned toward Hancock. You may want to check your cargo before we leave. The crew of the Shadow Sorrow stood ready to depart Angel Island. Most were in high spirits after a week of paradise, some tanner, some stronger, all refreshed. Luffy stood at the helm with a commanding tone. Nami, make sure we land near the calm belt. I want to avoid marine patrols. Nami, arms crossed and eyebrow twitching, muttered. You're putting a lot of trust in a damn octopus balloon, Captain. As the crew made final checks, Canis approached, puzzled. Strange, I haven't seen Isa since this morning. Lackey added, she said she was too tired after the week's excitement, but with no time to waste, the Shadow Sorrow began its descent, 10,000 meters down to the blue sea. Halfway through the slow descent, a shrill scream erupted from the ship's kitchen. That furball is stealing the meat again. Sanji's voice rang out. Luffy, Nami, Pudding, and Sanji rushed down. Nami yelled as they reached the door. Sanji, if you kicked poor Richie again, I swear all. But when they slammed open the door, it wasn't Richie at all. Inside, Salome, Hancock's massive white snake, sat coiled in the center of the room, and within those thick coils. A very familiar voice whined. Okay, I give up. Isa's head popped out, cheeks puffed, arms squished at her sides as she wiggled helplessly. Luffy's jaw dropped. Isa, what the hell are you doing here? Isa grinned sheepishly. Surprise. Pudding facepalmed. You stowed away in the kitchen. Luffy stormed over, arms crossed. How long have you been in there? Isa mumbled, since yesterday. Hancock entered behind them and burst out laughing. Looks like Salome earned her meat rations. Good girl. Salome hissed proudly. Pudding, arms folded, muttered. Note to self, bribe Salome more often. With a sigh, Luffy scratched his head and grumbled. Well, we're not flying back up, and it's not like we're tossing you into the sea. He looked at Hancock. Think we can train her? Hancock smirked. With the right discipline, maybe. Yamato entered holding a mop. Oh look, a new swabby. Now freed from Salome's coils but still ruffled and red-faced, Isa sat cross-legged on deck, being scolded like a misbehaving child. Viper, towering over her with arms crossed and veins bulging, roared. Do you have any idea how worried Lackey and Canis must be right now? They probably think you were kidnapped or worse. Isa tried to look apologetic, but only managed a slight pout. I just wanted to see more of the world. Before Viper could go full Sky Father mode, Luffy raised a hand, stepping forward with his arms folded. All right, enough yelling. What's done is done. We're not flying back up 10,000 meters. He in. So, welcome aboard, Isa. Isa's eyes lit up. Really? Yes. But, Luffy interrupted, his grin turning into a wicked smirk. For sneaking on board without permission, you're now the assistant deckhand. And your new boss. He pointed toward Kobe, who was already stretching his arms mischievously. Kobe, Luffy said cheerfully, you're in charge of her training. Kobe's face lit up like a sunrise. Oh, I've just the job for her. He rubbed his hands together, leaned down to Isa's level, and spoke with mock sweetness. Isa, meet your destiny, toilet duty. Isa's eyes bulged. No, not the bathrooms. I'm just a poor little girl. Please don't do this. Kobe grinned. Then you shouldn't have stowed away. That mop's waiting. The crew laughed loudly. Luffy then pulled out a small Den Mushi, already dialed and chirping. And third, you're going to call Canis and Lackey right now, and explain everything. He handed it to her. Isa slumped, utterly defeated. Why yes, sir. She took the receiver with trembling fingers. Hello. Canis. So, funny story.